G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/Am I the A-hole. Now if you love this video like I love you, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy the bloody good content. Posted by user Ridvo, titled, Am I the A-hole for not saying anything about the underwear? My 20-year-old daughter and her fiancé are currently staying with us. I love my daughter, but she is very difficult and I can't stand her fiancé. I gave them a deadline to move out because I can't take this anymore. They got into a massive fight the other day while my wife was out. I guess a pair of my wife's underwear got in their laundry and she thought he was cheating. I think the fact she immediately jumped to cheating shows how bad their relationship is. She was waving the underwear around and I recognized them because they had a floral print. But I just let this ridiculous fight go on. My wife came home after about 30 minutes and said they were hers. My wife asked if I didn't realize they were hers, and I accidentally laughed. My daughter burst into tears and won't talk to me. Her fiancé said we're screwed and left the house, but my wife thought it was funny. Come on, you know you're an a-hole for doing that, but it's hilarious. Oh my god, you're just taunting their crumbling relationship, OP. Stop poking the bear, it's not funny. You're the a-hole, but it's funny. Hoomst JPEG says, you might be the a-hole, but I am living for it. Edit. My personal verdict is you're the a-hole, but I'd like to invoke Crapman vs. Frickboy, which states that in times of outlandish or otherwise infantile behavior, a-holery may, subject to scrutiny, be permitted. Priceless. You're the a-hole, but not as bad as it sounds. Your daughter's relationship might be doomed, but not over the underwear. There were some underlying problems there that are manifesting by the day. You're the a-hole, but in that fatherly way, like the guy who's looking out for his daughter, and having a good laugh at the boyfriend's expense. Everyone sucks here, including me because I laughed too. Everyone sucks here, everyone but the mum. Mum took ownership of the floral panties right away. But she didn't confess to the cheating. Not the a-hole. If your first thought is cheating, not the other woman that lives in this house, you've got issues. My sister's undies ended up in my load once. Worse, since I had the same pair, I tried to put them on. She's a size -14 and I'm a size 14, so we're lucky the universe did not tear in half. Well, God, at least your load didn't end up in your sister's undies. God, Reddit, you're sick. He says, edit, dull, you're a female as well. Damn it, my joke isn't funny now. Not the a-hole. It's not your fight either. Also, it's wild that your daughter would think that her fiancé was bringing girls into your house, her own parents, to cheat on and accidentally leave underwear there. That's hilarious, and I would have probably laughed too. If I lived with another woman and the same thing happened to me, I feel like I would assume they were hers before anything else. My significant other and I keep our laundry separate, and stuff of his still ends up in mine. You forgot to add the cherry on top of the absurdity sundae that he added his trophy to their laundry. Yeah, like, his daughter either has major trust issues with her fiancé or she's nuts. Although at 20 years old, I wasn't exactly the most rational girl in the world either. That's a young age to commit to a marriage. Posted by user Not Adopting Her Baby. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not adopting my wife's child? I, 27 male, used to have a wonderful relationship with the woman I love, 26 female. However, 5 years ago, she got drunk and had a one-night stand and got pregnant from it. Can't be mine because I can't have kids due to horseback riding injury when I was a teen. Didn't get the guy's name and no way to find him, so he's out of the picture. My wife decided to keep it and we almost went through a divorce, but couples therapy made us decide to try again. We're still in therapy now, since I still have a hard time trusting her. So, she had her son. We talked about it a lot, and I made it clear that I'm okay taking on a step-parent role, but I wasn't willing to fully be his dad. I wouldn't adopt him, but I would help raise him and get him off to college. My wife agreed to this, became a stay-at-home mum so she could take care of him with help from her parents, and I've pretty much been the fun uncle-like guy. I play with him, buy him games, try my best not to resent him, and I'm in therapy for this, and mostly just stay out of the way of my wife's parenting. He even calls me uncle instead of dad. He knows I'm not his father, and is just happy to play video games with me and chill. Well, recently, my wife has started talking about me adopting him, something I'm not willing to do. I made it clear that if anything happened, he would go live with her parents and I'd send child support. If they couldn't take him, I wouldn't put him in the foster care or anything, but I also wasn't willing to take on the responsibility of being his father when I'm not. I'm happy being an uncle to another man's kid, since that's what life threw at me. This has greatly upset her, and she's trying to find a way to force me into adopting him. She's even been manipulating the poor kid, saying he should start calling me dad instead of uncle like he has his entire life, which is upsetting and confusing the poor boy. This situation has worked for the last 5 years, and I don't know why she's trying to change something that isn't broken, or force me into a role that I told her years ago I wasn't willing to accept, which she was fine with until just recently. Update. After hearing everything, I told my wife I was leaving and pursuing that divorce. I think I've been ready to do so for a while, but just needed the push. This has led to a complete meltdown, but I stayed firm, packed everything up, and moved in with my brother across town. I have already contacted the landlord to tell him I would pay for 2 more months' rent. After that, everything needs to be switched to her. Talking to my lawyer, it was verified that, due to the process I went through after the birth to establish I wasn't the father, I would not have to pay child support or alimony, which is something very rare and uncommon anyway where I live. He's already working on the paperwork. No idea when it'll happen, but once it does, I'll cut full contact. My wife has tried to call and text multiple times, but I've refused to talk. I'll post another update when I know more. Everyone sucks here. Everything about this is pretty terrible. Her cheating, you're purposefully distancing yourself from the child who is not yours through no fault of his own, not to mention you being the only father figure he's ever known. Dads don't need to be blood. You all sound like a-holes, except the little one, obviously, who I just feel sorry for. Sort your crap out for his sake. Exactly. If OP couldn't grow past his resentment of the kid not being his, then he never should have agreed to stay in the relationship. It's not fair to the child. Either he needs to be all in or all out. It's not that easy to just not resent. He's doing something better than being all out. He's still contributing to his life. It is sad he hasn't come along more, but he's still not a total a-hole. Everyone sucks here. I wholeheartedly disagree. Yes, on the surface, his acts are noble and with good intentions, and if anything are impressive and very admirable. But it's not really. He's a sort of dad figure with huge strings attached. If things go pear-shaped, he's out of there, and he's made that much clear. He doesn't see this child as his own. How confusing is it for a child to have a technical father figure in his life, one who is literally married to his mother, yet he refers to him as an uncle? The reason being, OP is keeping this poor little boy at an arm's length for a reason. He made the active choice to stay with his wife after a huge betrayal, but has not processed the realities of this clearly, has he? If he was all in, which he should be if he actively made the decision to stay, then he'd happily let this little one call him dad. He'd consider adopting him because he's all in, so why not? But he isn't. He wanted to stay in the relationship due to whatever benefits or positives for himself, but doesn't forgive his wife and doesn't fully accept this boy into his life. That's not fair, it is extremely selfish when you break it down. In which case, this little boy would have far more mental clarity if OP just decided to cut his losses and leave the relationship. It would at least give the boy consistency in his life and who the parental roles are for him. One parent who is a solid and consistent parent is better than 2, whereby one is wishy-washy. OP and his wife are both selfish a-holes. Poor little one, he didn't ask for any of this. Posted by user Acceptable2921, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling a friend of mine not to give my wife his business after she insulted me? Earlier this year, my wife started her own design business. It has been a dream of hers for some time. She automatically assumed I would help her with the legal documents, drafting, review, but no big deal. I was happy to do it even though I already have a full-time job that takes up a lot of my time and it requires some extra research on my part. Because this was not my regular job, sometimes I had to put work for her on the back burner. Any reasonable person should be able to understand this. I think, but not my wife. She felt entitled to be first priority, even though I explained to her that I had to prioritize the job that was actually paying our bills, which only upset her more. We had several arguments about this, and during one of them, she accused me of being lazy. She said that my job is easy and anyone could do it. I just didn't want to help her because I didn't believe in her. Never mind that I'd been spending my free nights and weekends doing work for her. That upset me, so I told her I was done. If she wanted someone to review her legal documents, then she should find a local firm and hire them. That upset her too, because her margins were already thin, so the extra expense didn't help, and she didn't mind letting me know how she felt about that decision. A friend of mine was recently looking for someone to do some interior design work for him. He had already talked to my wife, but I told him that if I was in his position, I would use someone more established and who wasn't a wreck 24/7. Basically, told him about our fights, and that based on how she's treated me lately, I questioned her mental fitness to do a project like this. He was surprised by that, but decided to take my advice and go with someone else. When my wife asked me to help her talk to him, I told her no because I'd already told him not to use her. This became another big fight, and we are still fighting about it. She told me that this could have been a big step forward for her business, and because of what I did, it may mean she doesn't make it. I don't know if that's true or not, but I stand by my advice to him. She is an emotional wreck and in no frame of mind to help anyone. Am I the a-hole? This again is just another one of those messy marriage fights. You know, you guys aren't looking out for each other's best interests right now. It's very clear by how you're portraying this. If she's not in a emotionally well-off place, why wouldn't you just help her? Go to counseling with her, get her some help? I think OP realizes by doing this, by cutting off work opportunities that he could find for her, he's putting her in a much worse off place, and that's not helping the mental fortitude now, is it? The wife is definitely being an a-hole too by refusing to compromise and have her work be put on the back burner sometimes. It's very unrealistic for your hobby to take precedence over someone's main job. I'm sorry, Chief. Everyone sucks here. Jesus Christ, just get a divorce already. Unless your vows included making each other intentionally miserable till death do us part. And OP replies, we may be headed down that path. I don't know. It seems like she's difficult to be around all the time. To be clear, it doesn't sound like you're a delightful daily companion either by a long shot. You sound difficult to be around. She brings that out in me. If you bring out the worst of each other, why are you married? It wasn't always that way. Everyone sucks here. You're trash-talking your wife behind her back to your friend? Classy. I don't condone her lack of understanding with the legal documents and putting a giant burden on you, but I'd say you escalated it and you are the bigger a-hole. I didn't trash her. I told him how she'd been acting and said that I didn't think she was in the frame of mind to do it to his standards. You said she was a wreck 24/7. In what world is that not trashing? It's one thing to say she's a bit overworked right now. Can you give it a bit of time? It's another thing to say she is incapable. That is what I honestly believed. She is a nervous wreck. I don't see how she can take on a project this size the way things are right now. You do know that you can be angry with someone, but still respect them, right? I.e., I think she's got a lot on her plate and suggest seeking someone else. Your lack of respect for her at all, and your apparent delight in that, makes me think you're more than the a-hole. You sound, well, hideously unkind. It's hard to respect her when she clearly has no respect for me. Then leave. You're the a-hole. Posted by user CajSim, titled Am I the a-hole for being upset my wife didn't make me a quesadilla? Okay, just to make sure we're clear, my wife and I get along great. It's a great marriage. This happened about a month ago, and it wasn't even a big deal, but it's one of those we both think we are right situations. This in no way affects our marriage now, I just want to know who was right. Here is the scenario. I work from home, so every morning I wake up at around 6:45 and start work around 7:15. My wife will sleep in, usually till around 8, and then she will wake up and make breakfast for the both of us. She does this every day, and she always cooks a great breakfast, and I am super appreciative. So one morning, my wife comes to my office and says, "I just really don't feel like cooking this morning. Would you be okay to eat cereal?" I said something along the lines of course, baby, that's totally fine, haha." My wife brings me a bowl of cereal, and I happily start to eat. Maybe 3 minutes later, I get the chance to take a short break from work, and I think to myself, oh, I'll go eat my breakfast with my wife. When I go to the kitchen, my wife is eating a freshly cooked quesadilla. Now, did I truly care? Not really. But years of listening to my mum guilt-trip my dad must have kicked in. I said, "It's not that you didn't feel like cooking, you just didn't feel like cooking for me." Now, my wife felt bad, and like she had been caught, and got up and made me a quesadilla, even though I said I was happy to eat cereal. Her point of view was this: making a quesadilla isn't really cooking. For her, that was the same as cereal. My point of view is this: it is cooking, and the fact that she felt bad kinda shows that I was a little bit right. Again, it doesn't matter, and I love my wife very much. She makes a wonderful breakfast for me every day, and I have no reason to complain. We are both super over it. What are y'all thoughts? Edit. For everyone saying I'm a bad husband and that you feel bad for my wife, I just want to reiterate that our marriage is great. Yes, my wife enjoys cooking and does a majority of the cooking. But I also do a lot around the house. It is definitely a partnership with both of us working together. As to why am I bringing this up a month later, and I must be so petty and immature, we had quesadillas for breakfast today. I had forgotten about it until this morning. I thought it would be an interesting discussion. Lastly, I love and appreciate my wife very much. On my 15-minute break this morning, we hugged and talked and even danced in the living room while our dog watched on the couch. As much as you may want to turn this one incident into what must be a miserable experience for my poor abused wife, that is just not an accurate depiction of our marriage. Now, all that being said, in this case, I am the a-hole. If my wife decided she didn't want cereal and instead cooked herself a full-course meal, she can do that and I shouldn't feel butthurt about it. My comment showed that my first instinct was to be petty and make her feel guilty. Even if I didn't intend that, that's what I did. Thank you for everyone's comments. Yeah, I do feel like he was being petty and trying to guilt-trip her there. And of course, he justified it with he was thinking back to what his father did. And it's understandable why he did that. It doesn't make it okay, and he should feel bad for doing that. I know I'd feel like a terrible person if I was the wife in this situation. He's making a huge deal out of something that really isn't a big deal. But at the end of the day, it is communication. He was communicating, albeit in the wrong way. So while I'm torn on it, I still agree that he is the a-hole, but obviously it didn't ruin anything. It was just one interaction. You're the a-hole. Heaven help she just feel like making herself food. I mean, it sounds like she brought you your cereal anyways. She cooks every day. She wanted one day to just make herself a little bite to eat, and no, her feeling bad doesn't mean you're a tiny bit right. It proves you guilt-tripped her for something minor. Would have not killed you to make your own breakfast. Also, reading the edits shows that OP understands how he's the a-hole and why. Nice to see someone who truly accepts their judgment and understands what they did wrong. Absolutely. Definitely. And I feel like there are so many stupid and petty arguments going on right now because we're all cooped up. There's a lot of stressful world events happening, and I don't think most of us understand the psychological toll we're all universally experiencing to some degree. I'm 26, and I've been living with my parents for the duration of quarantine, and I probably will be here for a while more. But when OP said he reverted to his mum's guilting behavior, I felt that. I have definitely reverted to my teenage antics multiple times, and my parents reverted to treating me like a teenager. Just the other day, my dad was annoying me for whatever reason, and he was like, because I am the adult, that's why. Ha! And I was like, oh crap, you're right, without even thinking twice. You're the a-hole, but you're also right? Let me explain. She totally did say she didn't feel like cooking this morning. What she meant to say was she didn't feel like making the usual 2-person breakfast production. I feel like you recognized this, but still felt the need to guilt trip her about it. That's kind of a dick move. She's not entirely blameless, like she totally could have just said what she meant, but that doesn't quite make her an a-hole. All things considered, the scale tips towards your a-hole. Ninja edit, I love that this is like the biggest problem y'all seem to have in an otherwise great marriage. And OP replies, we really do have an awesome marriage. We both work from home, so we are together all day every day. We got married in March 2020, so our whole marriage has been during quarantine. That being said, we still have yet to have any kind of fight. Edit, to add some clarification, this is not out of character for either of us. I've lived with multiple roommates and my family, I never fought with any of them. Except for Taylor, he knows what he did. And my wife only lived with her family, but she never really fought with her family either. We just are not the super sensitive type to get hurt feelings, and we talk things out. And if you want to know what happened to Taylor, he says, we had 3 guys living in a small 1-bedroom apartment. He started dating, and basically his girlfriend was always at our apartment. Like, she would be there when we went to sleep at 10 p.m, and then she would go home and come back at like 7 a.m. to hang out with him. My other roommate and I gave him the bedroom, but the only closet was in the room, so we all shared the closet. Well, he got to where he would yell at us for knocking on the door to go in and grab our clothes or whatever to get ready for bed. Basically, our kindness of offering him the room turned into claiming the only closet space was also his. This went on for several days after several peaceful attempts to work this out and be peacemakers. But he just kept getting more and more entitled. One day, I yelled at him in front of his girlfriend and went into the closet to get my pajamas at like 11:30 p.m. So, did he stop being an ass after that? It got a little better, but he moved out pretty soon after. Our new roommate was the absolute best. He was the best man at my wedding, and I was in his as well. Posted by user Marcellus, titled, Am I the a-hole for pushing my 17-year-old son for things that aren't his fault? My son is 17 years old, and over the past few months, he's been acting very peculiar, and we came to blows over this, and he spoke back to me saying that they're not his fault and he doesn't know what to do. Here is what I noticed from him. He's suddenly gone very lethargic very quickly. He'll get up, sit on his chair for about an hour, and be that tired that he'll sleep for another 3 or 4 hours, but will still be awake all night long. I suggested for him to go on walks as simple but effective exercises that will tire him out so he'll sleep at least 6 to 8 hours at night. He declines because he's tired. He stopped eating. This concerned me. He says that it's because he has zero appetite. I tried to make sure he was eating right when I first noticed this, back around last December time. He is obviously thinned out beyond belief. You can see an uncomfortable number of bones. I also believe that this might be why he's tired all day. He drinks literally all the liquid I buy from my food shop and then some. Like, he'll say that he's thirsty and has a really dry throat, and then he drinks a 2-liter bottle of Coke in literally 2 or 3 attempts. A literal sip for him is essentially drinking a full pint. He complains about having to go to the toilet more often. I told him it was because of the amount that he drinks. We had to stop twice when I was in the car with him the other day. The distance wasn't even 2 miles. Is me telling him that he needs to help himself worthy of me being the a-hole? Made a new account for this post. I mean, he can help himself for sure, but you can also help him by taking him to a doctor and seeing that it's not anything else first, because this is very quick, very fast onset of some serious stuff going on. I'm no doctor, but if you're peeing that much in a 2-mile trip, you might have something wrong with your kidneys or your bladder or something. You really might want to get that checked out. Because even if you're drinking that much water, I could scull 2 or 3 liters of water right now, and I wouldn't be peeing every 2 minutes. That's just not normal. So yeah, purely saying that he needs to help himself and you not offering to help him makes you an a-hole. High Class Cool says, you ever think the boy might be, ill? Yeah, you're the a-hole. You've gotten multiple warning signs and all you can think to do is yell at and punish him. This sounds like the son might be diabetic, and if it is, it's very serious. Please take your son to get some blood work done ASAP before he has organ failure. That is my thought when I saw tired, thirsty, and peeing a lot. Same. This reads like something out of a textbook. That and the casual mention of chugging 2-liter bottles of Coke in one sitting. God, I'll never forget watching my childhood best friend down 2 liters of Kool-Aid in about a minute just before she was diagnosed when we were 12. I hope OP takes him to the hospital like today. This so much. My brother-in-law suddenly dropped weight, was tired all the time, and was chugging apple juice and root beer like crazy. Turns out he has diabetes. He spent several days in ICU. Yep, I would run out of breath just trying to put on clothes in the morning and chalked up all the water drinking to it being July. Dropped 30 pounds in a month, and when I got to the ER and described my symptoms, they're like, yep, you definitely have type 1. Spent 5 days in the hospital just to get back to normal. Seeing as this has been going on for literal months, I hope the poor kid's body doesn't shut down from DKA. You're the a-hole for not taking him to a doctor. That sounds like diabetes and or depression. If it's diabetes and not being checked or controlled, especially after drinking entire liters of soda, he's going to kill himself or damage his body beyond repair. He's 17. Do something about it or force him to go before he turns 18 and refuses to go to the doctor. Posted by user No Car Keys, titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my dad use my car until my parents pay for my broken laptop? I, male 19, started letting my little brother borrow my laptop when his school switched to online. He used it during the day and then I'd pick it up after work. I live in the apartment right next door to my parents, so it wasn't no trouble. After he went on vacation, they asked if he could keep using it so he's entertained at home, and I let him. 3 weeks ago, he broke it going down the stairs. That laptop cost me almost $600 and I was mad. My parents said they were sorry, and I told them as long as they paid me back for a new one, it's alright. My mum told me they're not going to spend so much money on a laptop, and I should have bought a cheaper one anyways. We sort of got into an argument over it, but my parents still refuse to give me any money. A week goes by, and they still don't want to pay. It's not like they can't afford it. They're both still working their regular hours. They literally had enough to do a whole barbecue and buy a ton of fireworks for the 4th of July. My online classes are supposed to be starting in August, and I'm getting impatient because I really don't have enough to buy a new one myself. I'm barely keeping up with my bills, and I've had to cut back on how much I spend on groceries. So I decided to stop letting my dad use my car to go to work in the mornings. He's been using it since last year because my mum uses theirs and my job isn't that far. It's a 15-minute bus ride away, plus I don't like to drive a lot. Usually, I stop by their house before I go to work and leave the car keys for him by the door since he leaves after me. The night before, I texted him and said that he's not driving my car anymore until I get my money, so he'll have to find another way to get to work in the morning. Next morning, he was banging on my door. He started yelling in my face about what an ungrateful, spoiled child I was, all because of a laptop. He ended up taking an Uber when he realized I wasn't going to change my mind. Every day since, they both fight with me over the car because he doesn't want to waste his money on Uber. They've been calling me names and blowing up my phone, and it's starting to overwhelm me. I have no peace at home because they're always standing right outside my door when I get home, and my dad yells at me every morning. I've already told him if they give me the money for my laptop, I'll let him use my car, but they still don't want to. They said they shouldn't have to pay because they took care of me my whole life, and the least I could do is not make it hard on my dad to get to work. It's gotten real hostile here, and I don't know what to think anymore. Am I being an a-hole for going about it this way? This makes me feel really bad actually, because, it's turning into you being an a-hole because they are self-destructing so much. And it's one of those where you don't want to look at it, you kind of just want to walk away while everything's exploding around you. I don't get why the wife can't just drop him off to work in her car and then go to her work and just leave home an hour early. These are sacrifices that are possible to make in a lifetime. I think they are very lucky to still be working during all this time and still be having an income, but it does sound like they can easily fork out $600 to pay back for damaged property that this sibling is not paying for. There's too many people dodging paying him $600 when OP deserves and is entitled to that new laptop that was broken when he was giving it up. No one else is entitled to the car or the laptop until that is replaced. So I don't think OP's the a-hole here. $600 is hardly anything for a computer, definitely on the cheaper end. Since your bro is 12, they should pay you for a new one. Then maybe they could have him do chores or something. You have classes coming up and will 100% need it. You'll need to save up as much as you can now, no reason to put excess wear and tear on your car for the time being. Plus, what happens if they break the car? Will they avoid paying for that too? I hate when parents hold the fact they raised you over your head. We raised you, so we're entitled to not pay you back for your broken laptop that you need. This is some seriously flawed thinking, definitely not the a-hole. In most cases, people choose to have children and thus commit to the cost of raising them at least until the age of 18. Not the a-hole, but I think in your place, I'd tell them that since they won't pay for the laptop, I'm selling the car. Then I'd move the car to a friend's house or park it somewhere else until this gets settled. Or, if you think you can trust them to not mess with the car, tell them it's not drivable because you've cancelled the insurance and stopped buying gas for it, so you can save money up for a new laptop. Oh crap, this is a great idea. I need a laptop much more than a car. Since you won't pay for my laptop, I'll have to get the money from selling my car, then see what happens. And actually do it if they don't budge. If you don't need the car, you actually do need the laptop. Am I the a-hole for telling a social worker the real reason why my sister wants a foster kid? So this is a throwaway account. While my sister doesn't use Reddit, we have mutual friends who do. I'm a 28 female and I have a sister, 36 female. For the sake of the story, I'll just call her Jane. Jane is married to Bob and they have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. My niece and nephew are wonderful kids and no trouble at all. They fight as siblings do, but nothing big. I love them. Now, for about 2 years, I did live with my sister. It was a miserable time that really affected our relationship. She saw me as free labor, money, and babysitting. Even when I managed to get a small part-time job, she demanded I hand over nearly half of my payment or get out. It was hell, as she took complete advantage of me. I moved out as soon as I could, and we had little contact outside of family gatherings. Now, after I moved out, she started complaining how she was no help with the kids and never gets a break. I babysit sometimes, but I have made it clear, just because I am off work doesn't mean I want an 8-hour day with my niece and nephew. Anyway, she started talking about how she wanted to foster a kid. Not a kid, but a teenager. I pressed her for more info on this. She wants to adopt a teenager so she has a live-in babysitter for her kids. This is her logic. I want a kid around 16 or 17, someone who may have been in the system for a while. They can share a room with your nephew. She only has a 3-bedroom house or sleep in the garage. They can help me with housework, chores, cook, and help me with my business. She bakes and sells cookies. Also babysit the kids so me and Bob can go out sometimes or have some alone time. They'll be so grateful for a home and won't complain. I won't have to pay them at all, and then when they turn 18, I can just sign up for another foster kid. A teenager will be so much easier than a little kid. They will be grateful just to have a roof, food, siblings if they have been separated from their real ones, and clothes. I was horrified. Told her it was a horrible idea. But she didn't listen to me. She went on with it anyway. About a month ago, a social worker showed up at my apartment to ask me some questions about my sister. She had put me down as a character witness or something like that. I immediately told the foster worker why my sister really wanted to foster a kid and how she treated me when I lived with her. The lady thanked me. My sister called crying, saying that she wouldn't be considered for any adoptions or fosters. The social worker told her that they felt her home and her weren't a good fit. She asked if I said anything, and I told the truth. She went off on me, hung up, and we haven't spoken since. She has sent some angry texts. A couple family members are on her side. They think foster kids are fudging dogs or something, and would be so happy just to have a roof and would be glad to do all the housework. So, am I the a-hole here? Edit. So wow, I didn't know my post blew up like this until I got home from work. Thank you everyone for the kind words, messages, and awards. Remember, no child is in control of the circumstances that may have landed them in the foster care system. They are children and still human. They deserve a loving home and care. Do right by a foster kid, and thank you again. Feel free to message me or chat if you like. I don't know if there's a universe where you could be considered an a-hole for preventing the abuse of a child/teenager. I feel like OP kind of has to be rewarded for their efforts to prevent the child from being put into forced slavery by this woman. The sister essentially wants a robot, like slave worker, than they do want a real human living in their house. That's so wrong and disgusting. So, it's for the best that OP shut that down real quick. OP, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, you told the truth and saved a teenager from a terrible life of being used and dumped for another, which is no way to treat anyone. It is a foster child, not a slave. I said that, but her logic is, it's not slavery, I'm giving them a home, food, clothes, and everything else. Yeah, and making them watch your kid 8 hours a day, cook dinner, and do everything you are feeling too fudging lazy to do, 'cause life is hard. I was especially bothered by the, when they turn 18, I'll sign up for another adoption. People aren't disposable like that. You adopt because you want to give someone a home, a family, and a life. Not to give them an unpaid position as a maid, chef, and caretaker. You did the right thing. Does she think that slaves weren't housed and fed? Because they absolutely were. And what your sister was trying to do was absolutely abhorrent. Thank you for protecting some poor kid from her. Slaves were housed and fed by their owners. This woman would have let their government pay for that. Not the a-hole. What the hell is wrong with your sister? WTF? She believes that teenagers in foster care will just be happy to have a home, period. They won't need the attention that a little kid does. Just to be clear, her husband was against this too, but she went ahead and started the process without him knowing. Hopefully, if he leaves her when she figures out just how crazy she really is, he would get full custody and you could tell the judge this story. When, not if. Posted by user Anon918282828, titled, Would I be the a-hole for letting the child I gave up 18 years ago back in my life against the wishes of her father? Over 18 years ago, when I was 15, I became pregnant with my high school boyfriend's baby. I did not want to keep the baby, and my parents agreed to let me get an abortion if that was what I wanted. I told my high school boyfriend, who was 17 at the time, that I was pregnant, but I planned to have an abortion. He did not take this well and ran to his parents to try and stop me. Him and his parents begged for me to keep the baby. At the time, I was young and easily manipulated. After some time of begging, I agreed to carry the baby to term if they paid for everything, and then took the baby. When the baby was born, I signed my parental rights away with no regrets, and all parties agreed I would have no contact with the child. I have had no regrets from giving the child up. I went to college and have made a successful career, met the love of my life, and have had 2 children with him in my own time. But 2 months ago, I received a Facebook message from the child I gave up 18 years ago. She asked if I was her biological mother, and I told her the truth. She asked to meet me, and I said yes. After meeting, we discussed the situation I had been in, and she told me she had no anger, but only sadness for how things turned out. She told me about her childhood and said her father was a great father to her and she had a great stepmother. She ended up telling me her father had no clue she had contacted me. I told her that she should tell her father the truth because he did raise her. She agreed and asked me if we could stay in contact, and I agreed. To be honest, even though I had no regrets from my decision and was happy to see this girl had an amazing life, I saw no reason to exclude her from mine if we both agreed to have a healthy adult relationship. I had no plans to be her mother and made this clear, and she understood. But only a week after our first meetup, I got a very angry call from her biological father. He told me I had no right to be in her life now. I told him I didn't necessarily disagree, but she was the one that sought me out, and it would be cruel to deny her. This, of course, only made him angry. I tried to assure him I wasn't trying to take a parental stance in her life, and he had nothing to worry about, but he didn't care. He told me I needed to stay true to our agreement and stay away from his kid. Ever since then, I had only talked to the girl through text. Every time she asks to meet up, I give her an excuse. I feel awful giving her the runaround, but I don't want to hurt her relationship with her father and stepmother. Would I be the a-hole for letting this girl into my life more? Edit/update. I very much agree that I should not be lying to her. I honestly really would like a relationship with her as long as she wants one with me. I have contacted her and asked to go to dinner this weekend. I hope I can communicate what's been going on in my mind lately and be as honest as possible with her. Thank you for the judgment and kind words. Personally, I don't think she's the a-hole at all in this situation. Reddit deemed this one an everyone sucks here situation, but I don't see how the mother is an a-hole in this situation. She first starts by respecting the wishes of the father, lets him live his life with the kid. She didn't want the kid, everyone respected that, and now the kid, when it's 18, there's no court order anymore, that there's no more communication there. You're allowed to do what you want at 18. She wants to be part of her mother's life in a friendly capacity. Now the father blows up. That's a dick move. He's being controlling. I'm sorry, he is being controlling, and he can't control his own daughter like that. Nor can he bully OP. They're allowed to do what they want. If that ends in the daughter getting an emotional attachment to the original OP and it not going too well, that's just the consequences of your actions. You can't stop that. So I don't think OP sucks. I think OP's not the a-hole. Freak you, Gallon says, everyone sucks here, you, for this and only this. Every time she asks to meet up, I give her an excuse. Either cut her off or let her in. Don't play games with her. She deserves better. Father, for trying to control his adult child by not respecting her right to find her bio parent, using the coerced agreement of a 15-year-old as the reason. My guess is that he is angry that you didn't parent this child like you were supposed to, and he now wants to punish you despite the agreement being about him wanting to control your actions. Coerced agreement of a 15-year-old. This is such an important detail. Literally, the only reason it isn't everyone sucks here was that she is not being honest with the daughter. Other than that, OP is absolutely not the a-hole. The father sounds like a manipulative, controlling jerk from way back. He has no right to decide who the daughter talks to. Not the a-hole, although OP should either tell the girl OP can't see her and why, or just meet up with her anyway. There's no reason for her ex-boyfriend to still control her actions. Agreed. OP, your daughter is 18, legally an adult, and able to choose who she talks with, meaning she can talk to you and you don't need to sugarcoat anything or fib/lie. Posted by user, May Your Life Be Good. Titled, Am I the a-hole for moving out of my bedroom because of my wife's gaming? My wife got very mad at me for buying a cot and sleeping in the dining room because of her gaming late at night. When she gets done with her work, she likes to game, and that is cool by me. I even do a little bit of gaming myself. The only issue is, I have to go to bed because I have to be up early, and she'll play survival games that scare the hell out of her, and she will jump so hard and scream like a hornet just stung her in the cortoid artery. When this happens, I damn near get thrown off the bed and wake up in a full-blown panic attack. She is now mad and saying that I am overreacting. Am I the a-hole? oh yes, let me just intentionally wake you up with my screaming and not move to somewhere else that you can't hear me or control myself because it's late at night and you need to sleep. You're overreacting because you don't need sleep. God, what are you, an idiot? She is delusional. OP, you're not the a-hole. I think you just need to shut that down or keep doing what you're doing. I don't know, find a good compromise in this situation. Not the a-hole. She seriously can't understand that it is neither normal nor healthy to wake you up like that. Haven't you talked to her about it? Yes. She apologizes and just says blah blah, snuck up on me, then goes back to playing. This morning, it was a wolf that snuck up on her in the dark. Explain to her that you need your sleep and that alternatively, she can play in the living room and come to bed when she's done playing. If she doesn't accept this compromise, then stay in the cot. My parents had this issue as well, as my mum would use the TV to fall asleep, which is a terrible idea in its own right, but the noise and light would keep my dad up. He eventually put his foot down and moved the TV out. The bedroom is for two things, and they both start with S. Cries in tiny flat lockdown. Can't wait for days where rooms can go back to single use. Bedroom is currently a bedroom, office, gym, and occasional dining room. Not the a-hole. She is being inconsiderate to you and your sleeping schedule. Would it be possible for her to move her gaming somewhere else, like the living room? She can, but she doesn't. Then she can't be mad about you wanting to sleep elsewhere. Maybe think about going to couples therapy so she can understand why it bothers you and a way both of you can compromise. I don't understand this sub's obsession with sending people immediately to couples therapy. This is not a communication issue between the two of them. It isn't rocket science to figure out repeatedly jolting a sleeping person awake because you're gaming is not appropriate. If she cannot understand this, then it's a her problem, not a relationship problem. If you're suggesting she needs therapy for her lack of empathy, fine. But sitting the two of them on a couch to discuss why he doesn't like getting unnecessarily woken up is a waste of money and time. Posted by user Wondervast, titled, Am I the a-hole for making a scene during my husband's friend's baby shower over a comment? I'll try to make this as brief as possible. My husband and I, both 37, have been together 7 years. For about 10 years, he's had a close female friend named Jane. Jane is fine. We have enough in common that I like doing things in group settings with her, and we even chat on our own occasionally. But she's definitely closer to my husband. She's been with her own husband since I came around, but I always got the sense from Jane herself, from old photos, and a few old anecdotes from some of my husband's other friends, that Jane wanted to date my husband before she met hers, and he just never showed any interest. So throughout the years, there has been a little weirdness, but nothing serious. He was her man of honor, a few gushy tributes to him on his birthday over Facebook, or the odd sitting on his lap in a big group photo, but never overly flirtatious. And she seemed super happy with her husband, so it was never a big enough deal to mention anything, but I noticed them all. Fast forward to a few months ago, and Jane became pregnant. She immediately asked my husband to be the godfather, and he was thrilled. I wasn't surprised, was happy for him, internally a bit of course she did. But through the months, she turned weird. She wanted my husband to come with her and her husband baby shopping once or twice. Even asked how my husband felt about him and I being the first people to meet the baby when they're born. It's nice that she included me, but clearly it's about my husband. And then it escalated. She announced she was going to name the baby after my husband. Not just his name, but her Facebook announcement said, after my dearest and best friend, John. I mentioned that was weird to my husband, and he just said, I think it's a nice tribute. This past weekend was her very small COVID-friendly baby shower, during which Jane kept referring to my husband as godfather-to-be, which irked me every single time. I guess the month of her being weird just piled on because towards the end, she asked me to take a photo of her and her husband, and then she said, okay, now let's get one with both the fathers-to-be. And I said very loudly, oh, come the frick on, are you serious? Everybody heard me. I stared at her for a moment, and she looked absolutely aghast, and I grabbed my purse and just left. My husband followed me, but in the car he wouldn't say a word to me. I laid out everything I did in the post, including a dozen other examples, but he just stared straight ahead and wouldn't answer. Finally, when we got home, he acknowledged that yes, a lot of that stuff, now that he sees it all laid out, is inappropriate, and he's sorry that he didn't see it and understands how I feel. But he is absolutely livid that I ruined her baby shower. Jane is furious, never wants to see me again, and John feels like this is going to drive a big wedge through his friend group. So, was I the a-hole here? I initially went into a long rant, saying that you're the a-hole OP, but in these comments there is more information that's come to light. People would be very angry at me for the rant that I went on attacking the wife. And although I felt it was justified at the time, with more information and getting clarity, I believe that it's an everyone sucks here, leaning on OP is not the a-hole. Wow, I believe I have processed what happened. I'm going to say everyone sucks here, because I have to pinpoint it, but you have so much sympathy from me. There's a time and place for that, and laying down the law, but it's not at her baby shower. Edit. This 4K points is insane. For everyone responding to me, I did not know about the conception issue. I would change my rating to everyone sucks here or something. Still think to let something like this simmer in a marriage is a bad idea. But to say Jane didn't deserve a little comeuppance would be erroneous. Edit twice. Didn't realize the comment carried so much weight, so I changed it to everyone sucks here. I hope people leave me alone now. Either this, or it's the perfect time. Think about Jane's husband as the poor cuckold during all this two fathers bullcrap. Jane needed a harsh wake-up call, and she got it. I think this was the perfect time to call her out, but everyone sucks here. How emasculating for her husband. Jane has issues, and sometimes we all reach a boiling point. I feel for the OP and her clueless husband. He is right, the friend group will change. I am editing my opinion, OP is not the a-hole, based upon further info she shared below. OP and her husband tried for years to conceive, and Jane knew. To me, that means Jane is evil and digging her own knife. She deserved to be called out on her bad behavior, even at her own baby shower. Screw the dude's emasculation, what about his wife's emasculation? She had to put up with his bullcrap for fear of looking like a crazy person, which Jane clearly seems to be. Projecting Jane's feelings on OP's husband is disrespectful, and her husband lets that crap happen. Not the a-hole. Yes, your timing was extremely unfortunate, and you should apologize to the shower hosts and any guests you were friendly with. But damn, Jane needs to understand she poked and poked and poked and poked, and yeah, eventually that crap's gonna come back at her as an attack. If she didn't want to be called out, she shouldn't have acted as she did. I would apologize with, I didn't mean to imply there had been an affair, so Jane and her husband get how inappropriate Jane had been. Edited from everyone sucks here to not the a-hole based on OP's response. I totally 110% understand where you're coming from, but to say that loud enough for the whole party to hear is, I mean, that was a reaction. I probably would have said the same damn thing, by the way. And she is absurd saying things like both the fathers-to-be. That is egregious. You didn't mention kids, and I don't know if you want or plan to have any, or have not conceived, but this just sounds like a major overstep regardless. OP says, we actually tried for a long time to conceive, couldn't, and had to give up for health concerns. All of which Jane is well aware of. It hadn't occurred to me until just now that that might have played a part in my anger at hearing her refer to my husband as a father. Oh my god, I hate her. She is, twirling fingers by my temples, psycho balls. She has a husband, she's having a baby. Why does she need to claim your husband too? I am dying to know what her husband thought of that statement. Is he really okay with the God part of Godfather being silent? If I had been witness to that, even without the background, I would have been like, the two fathers? What now? I'm willing to bet the other guests did too. Posted by user Throwaway Joe Ryder, titled Am I the a-hole for not letting my daughter move in with me? Not native speaker. I divorced my ex-wife 3 years ago. I initiated divorce because we were not physically compatible any longer. My daughter, 13, chose my ex-wife over me. I was devastated as I provided everything to her. Now I have my daughter's custody every weekend. Last year, my ex-wife married her co-worker and moved in with him. Yesterday, she called me crying and asked me if she could move in with me permanently. She's having some issues with her stepdad. I told her no, she made her choice 3 years back when she chose her mother over me despite everything I did for her. She is obviously welcome in the house for every weekend as per custody agreements, but I want her out on Monday. My partner thinks I'm too harsh on her, but she left me. I didn't. Am I the a-hole? Yes, I think you're an a-hole for this one. I think if she's having trouble at home, you should be an enabler in this situation and enable her to be somewhere she feels comfortable and safe as her parent. She's 13 years old. Come on, can't you give her some slack? That's really not a good age to be dealing with such a traumatic environment, as big or as small as it may be. And it's your duty as a parent to be looking after her. So you're definitely an a-hole for not giving her the opportunity to stay longer when she wants to. Yikes, you're the a-hole. You're holding resentment against a 13-year-old child who wanted to stay with her mother. Middle school age is a really formative time for young girls, so it's no surprise she wanted to stay with her mum. You still have every weekend. What you're doing now is pushing your daughter away. She's 16. If you want a relationship with her, and a relationship going forward into her future, this right here is what's going to make that incredibly difficult. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if she stopped coming on the weekend too. You're making it clear that you don't want her. For her sake, I hope she has some friends that she can stay with who actually care about her well-being, not just ones that stop caring on Monday. Info. Is the daughter currently 16? I read it as she's currently 13 and chose to be with her mom when she was 10. Oh geez, if that's the case, he's even more the a-hole. He's not her best friend, he's her father. If she's having an issue with her stepdad, it might not even be safe for her to be with her mom right now. And at 13, she likely wouldn't have friends to stay with. OP needs to get over himself. And OP initiated divorce because his wife gained weight. He's completely the a-hole. Yes, you are an a-hole. Also, what the hell is physical compatibility? She gained too much weight, around 30 kilos. Now you're the a-hole twice. Why is leaving someone you're no longer attracted to bad? Because he's blaming his own daughter for the breakdown of her relationship with him when he's the one who left the family because mummy didn't make his pee-pee hard anymore. Leaving due to sexual incompatibility is fine. Holding a grudge against your kids because they're mad about it is not. Posted by user T352, titled, Am I the a-hole for asking my dad to get me feminine products because my boyfriend refused because he felt too embarrassed? I'm currently on my period and have some bad cramps today. My whole body is aching and I'm feeling very low energy. I'm nearly running out of pads, so I kindly asked my boyfriend if he could go down to the local store to get me some pads, chamomile tea, and painkillers. He started huffing and puffing, and he wanted to blow the house down, and said he wouldn't get that stuff for me. I asked him why, and he said that it's too embarrassing. I didn't have the energy to argue, so I texted my dad and asked him if he could get that stuff for me. He lives nearby and is currently WFH, working from home. He was on his lunch break. Fortunately, he arrived within 15 minutes and got me everything I needed and then some. My boyfriend got so ticked. He said that just because he refused, it doesn't mean that I should go running to my dad. I asked him why that's an issue, and he didn't fully explain himself. He just said that it's his job to get me stuff like that, which makes no sense because I asked him to and he refused. He's nagging the whole time, and I had no patience for that. He continued being moody and said that it was disrespectful of me. I think he's just being moody and feels emasculated by your dad because he didn't want to go get the products. I don't even think that he's regretting his choice. He's just warping the narrative of this to make you some evil woman with cramps who can't control herself and has to get her father to look after her because he doesn't want to. Is he delusional? Like, is he okay in the head? He's an a-hole, you're not, OP, you're okay. Not the a-hole, lose the boyfriend but keep the dad. And OP says, keeping the dad. Boyfriend is upset because your dad showed everyone how fragile your boyfriend's masculinity is. This is the answer, pure and simple. If it was boyfriend's job, why did he fail to do that job when called upon? It's because he isn't worthy. I think he didn't do the job when called upon because he was obviously worried that people would think all of those things were for him and for his vagina. On a serious note, he really needs to get over that. He should be bringing OP those things and her favorite treats. Either he was just being lazy or his masculinity is very fragile. Either way, this is a basic thing that boyfriends will likely have to deal with at some point. It's a chance for him to take care of OP and he failed to do it. If that's his job and he refused to do his job, the question is if this is a written warning situation or a situation that should lead to his immediate termination from the position. Honestly though, I want to know if he's normally a good guy and having a bad day, or is he just a little bear more often than not? Immediate termination. If the boyfriend can't handle something as simple as buying tampons, he is not ready for a serious relationship. Also, the way he handled OP getting help from her dad after he refused to help his sick girlfriend is a huge red flag for emotional abuse. I don't get the fragility aspect. Oh no, I'm a man who has women in his life who rely on him and trust him to bring them something they need. Gosh, how emasculating being able to publicly display that I'm a good son, good husband, good boyfriend, or good father. Surely my personal sacrifice for those I love will be seen as a weakness for what? Women. What person longs for someone to make sacrifices for them to improve their lives? Alright, fudging everybody. Am I the a-hole for not accommodating my sister-in-law's food allergy? I'm 38 male, married with 3 kids. Recently, my mum turned 65 and begged to see her kids and grandchildren on her birthday. I have an older brother who's married with 4 kids, ages 2 to 12, only youngest 2 are his, and a much younger brother who's 23, who's single. My wife and I offered to host a weekend get-together. My older brother had to work late the first night, but his wife, Emily, fake name, offered to come earlier in the day with the kids and cook dinner for everyone. Emily is a great cook, and her parents own a local restaurant that's well known for a dish they serve once a month. Emily is the chef for that dish, and my wife and I have had it, but my mum and brother haven't tried it. I asked Emily when she arrived that day if she would make the dish, and she agreed. I had most of what she needed, but I told her to text my younger brother for any extra items and I would pay for them. Dinner went great. Food was wonderful. But at some point, my mum took a picture of her plate and sent it to my older brother with a caption that said something like, "You're missing out." And then it all went to crap. The reason Emily only makes this dish once a month at the restaurant is because she's highly allergic to one of the main ingredients. Her parents are weirdly protective of the recipe and won't let anyone else cook it. I assumed this was common knowledge within my family, but she and my brother have only been together for about 5 years, so maybe it hasn't come up. In any case, my brother was furious that I asked her to make it. My little brother said I was disgusting, and my mum dramatically claimed that I put her in danger. Frankly, I think the reaction was ridiculous. She's a grown woman and clearly knows how to manage her allergy. It's not like she ate it. Also, Emily didn't seem upset about anything and was off watching a movie with all the kids, so didn't hear any of this. I kind of thought it had blown over after a couple of hours, until my older brother got there around midnight and found Emily in the kitchen eating some cereal. He told me it was bullcrap that I made her cook a meal she can't eat and then let her eat cereal. Again, this woman is a grown-up. She could have asked my little brother to get her something else to cook for herself, but she didn't. At that point, I was tired. My wife had cleaned the kitchen, and Emily had gotten the kids in bed. So when my older brother pulled out a chicken breast saying he was going to cook something for Emily, I put my foot down and said no. I feel like my family babies Emily as it is. Lots of reasons for this. I understand it, but it's frustrating. And I wasn't willing to let my brother make another mess, cooking a whole other meal at 12 a.m. The whole rest of the weekend was awkward and strained, and basically ended with my mum and younger brother telling me that I ruined the whole get-together. Do I not get to set any boundaries in my own house? Alright, so before we get to anything else, just gonna say, by the way he's, spaced these actions out, I definitely believe that he's the a-hole. It's a weird occasion when someone only cooks a meal once a month. It's weird to have them over and then ask them to cook something that they can't eat, and then have them just be happy with that. I'm feeling a disconnect where he didn't ask her if she was cool with that or not. He kind of just assumed. And then to deny the brother in his attempt to make her chicken? What is that about? Why can't you just let them cook in your own house? I feel like a whole another mess cooking a whole other meal. There's some more backstory here we're not getting. He's definitely trying to frame himself as not the bad guy, but I definitely see through that, and I think he is. OP, you're the a-hole. Edit and update. I can see that I'm definitely the a-hole. Got it. I showed my wife this post and the replies this morning. She hasn't commented much on this situation, and said today it was because she was so embarrassed by my behavior that she didn't know what to say. But she agreed with almost everyone. I called Emily this morning and my brother answered her phone. I talked to him for about an hour and then was able to apologize to Emily. She explained that she said yes to cooking because she knew how much I like the dish, and also she doesn't think I like her that much. So she was worried that I would be upset if she said no. My brother also explained that her allergy has topical effects as well, and the cooking process gets the allergen everywhere, which is why she hates cooking it so much, and also why she can't make anything else for herself at the same time. Please note that I know I was the a-hole even without this info. It just makes it worse. It also makes me look at the situation with her parents differently, because they've been having her make this meal for years and downplaying the skin reactions like it's not a big deal. I work in a really cutthroat, callous environment. It's not an excuse to be thoughtless with my family, but I do think it had some clear effects in my general attitude towards other people. I do like Emily. She improved my brother's life profoundly when they got together, which is part of why my family loves her like they do. Emily was more gracious accepting my apology than I deserve, but she did also tell me that she won't be accepting invites to my house again for a while, which I think is fair. I was mad at first, reading a lot of the comments, but I needed the reality check. Thanks. Midnight Malaga says, "You're the a-hole. Emily offered to make dinner for everyone, incredibly generously, and you asked her to make the one thing she couldn't eat herself? And then you refused to let her husband make her a meal after he got home because you didn't want the mess. You're an unbelievable a-hole." No, it's even worse because you see, OP didn't do anything. His wife cleaned the kitchen and Emily entertained the kids and put them to bed. I'm guessing he didn't want his brother to cook, because then OP might have actually had to do something. Right? I almost spit out my coffee at OP's "I'm so tired," and then detailing how his wife and Emily did all the work. You know what else is also pretty funny? His original Am I the A-hole post was titled, "Am I the a-hole for asking visiting family members not to cook in my kitchen after midnight?" So I guess his original line of thinking was that people would agree with him that it's crazy to cook after midnight? Also, he was originally trying to spin it as a request, I guess. Too bad we will never know because he ranted about it for over 3,000 characters. Sounds like Emily is very aware of OP's a-holery and just avoids him. Late edit, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like OP asked Emily to cook this thing, a thing he knew she got into arguments about cooking with her own parents after she was there, then suggested if she needed her husband to pick her up more, she could. The husband that got home too late to use OP's kitchen? I mean, either that or Emily chose to keep this upsetting but unavoidable fact from her husband, which seems very unlikely. Did OP seriously think it was appropriate to stock his kitchen in anticipation of her cooking something she can't even eat? No. Her husband only came around midnight after working late, which was the plan. It's the younger brother who was asked to pick up the missing ingredients. So OP says, cool, cook the dish, my younger bro will pick up what you need for it. Younger brother and Dopey's mum didn't know about the allergy until after the meal was over. This guy's comments are a friggin' a-hole goldmine. Here's a quick summary. I was not letting her eat, she had some cereal. I guess I just thought she would cook something for herself at the same time. I think we just assumed she would eat later on. She was helping with my kids and hers, so she may have been too busy to make anything else. I guess that he was just trying to make sure she ate something decent. I just didn't think the timing was appropriate and she should be taking care of herself. I did know about her allergy, she cooked it for my wife and I before. I do know that she's tried to stop making it at the restaurant, but it caused fights with her parents. Emily's family is tough on her, and she has trouble saying no to things. But she's an adult, and she has learnt to do that, otherwise things like this happen. My brother overcompensates in general for other people treating his wife badly in the past. Also, right before he posted this Am I the A-hole, he tried to post one titled, Am I the A-hole for asking visiting family members not to cook in my kitchen after midnight, and then posts this with a title about accommodating a food allergy. That's not what this is all about, at all. He walked all over this poor woman and is blaming her because, well, if you let people walk all over you, what do you think will happen? You're the a-hole OP. Big time. Posted by user Hitchmaster. Titled, Am I the a-hole for walling off my backyard because I dislike 2 kids and depriving everyone else as a result? I sure feel like the a-hole, but I don't think I am, so help me out here. I live in a non-English speaking European country, and because of history, that means that land borders between properties are sometimes very weird. Well, that is the case with my house and the neighbours. All our houses are about the same size, yet out of all the land behind our houses, my area is huge. I own like 90% of all land there, reaching all the way to the woods far behind our houses. Meanwhile, all my neighbours essentially got tiny strips right behind their houses. Now, the part right behind my house is fenced off, yet the rest is pretty much open, and my wife and daughters like to use it for gardening. The field is used by most of the neighbourhood boys to play football on, as it's the only flat piece of grassland around, and they always ask for permission to use it beforehand, and I always allow it on the condition I get no complaints if I tell them to leave and they don't litter. I also recently had a pool installed to the far back of the property and fenced it off. This is important later. Well, this is where the issue starts. Recently, a new family moved in, and they seem to think it is public land. I kept catching their kids running through the flowers and vegetable garden, and even moved their grill on the field and held a picnic on my land. I keep telling them off and informing them it is my land, but they just ignore me, and the kids sometimes won't leave when I tell them to. A month ago, the kids even climbed over the fence around the pool, and when I got them out and went to their parents, they just said, "Oh, we just figured it was a public pool." I had hoped that that was the end of it, yet these people built a fire pit in the 3 days I was away from my house, and when I got back, I found it with a bunch of empty beer cans around. That was the last straw for me, and I hired a company owned by a buddy of mine from when I used to do construction work, bought all the supplies, and 7 days later, and a lot of money later, my entire property was walled off, and whenever anyone asked, I told them why I was doing that and who they could thank for it. Well, now the new family is treated as if they're a pest, and all the neighborhood kids are gutted they lost their football field, which has resulted in them picking on the new neighbor's kids. I honestly feel pretty terrible, but I also feel like I gave them plenty of warnings before taking drastic actions. Honestly, no, I think you were completely justified in your decisions to completely fence off your property, and it takes a village to change the attitudes of a child. It may take a village to raise them, but it takes a village to shun them also. Not the a-hole. It just takes a few a-holes to ruin it for everyone. You repeatedly told them it was private property, and they repeatedly trespassed and disrespected it anyway. Pretty much. I just feel really bad for the other kids. especially since there's nowhere else to play football unless they cycle for an hour. They could still ask, and you could still let them in on your own. And you said that they would always ask, so what's the difference? Now you just have to let them in. Yeah, I think if you only let people in after you give them permission, you won't be the grumpy old man of the neighborhood, and you will still have some privacy. The issue is then you have people who may let in the people who are causing the problem, or the neighbors will find a way to get in because they obviously feel entitled to the space. Not the a-hole. Kids and their parents ruined it for everyone. Just tell everyone else who mentions it that's what happened. You could always install a gate and let some kids in to play football and such if you felt bad about it. You don't have to at all. He says there is a gate at the back, so that's possible. Posted by user White Wedding GG, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not letting my mother-in-law attend my sister-in-law's wedding unless she changed her dress first? This happened a while ago. No big weddings during a pandemic for me, don't worry. I, 24 female, was the maid of honor at the wedding of my brother and his wife, my sister-in-law. While we were planning the wedding, my sister-in-law mentioned how overbearing her mum can be, and how she always feels bad asking her to stop being an attention hog. I told my sister-in-law on the wedding day that I'd take care of her no matter what. Sure enough, mother-in-law pulls up to the wedding wearing a white dress, something my sister-in-law guessed she'd do. I saw her get out of her car and start walking towards the venue, so I pulled her aside before anyone else could see her and brought her in through a side entrance. I told her that it was inappropriate to wear white at someone else's wedding, and that if she wanted to attend, she'd have to change. I had my sister-in-law give me one of my mother-in-law's nice dresses, so I had a few for her to choose from. Mother-in-law flipped out on me. She told me I had no right to ask her to change and that I was being a pain in the ass on an emotional day. She started crying and went to look for her husband, so I updated sister-in-law, and she told me if mother-in-law would rather miss her own daughter's wedding rather than just change her dress, she could miss it. Mother-in-law ended up changing, but made a huge deal out of it, and went home early during the reception because she didn't feel welcome. She still maintains that I was out of line. I don't think I did anything wrong, but I do feel really crappy for potentially being the reason my sister-in-law wasn't able to enjoy her wedding fully with her mother, even though sister-in-law still had crazy amounts of fun. Am I the a-hole? No, it's disgusting that people still have the audacity to wear white to other people's weddings. They always try to play it off like they're not trying to take all the attention and make the day about them, but they're pretty much Michael from The Office in a dress. They're definitely trying to get attention, they definitely are seeking that. There's no excuses to it. OP, not the a-hole for stopping that madness and getting her to change. Whoa, not the a-hole. Mother-in-law is a grown woman who cried because she was asked to change out of a white dress at her daughter's funeral? Oh my god, I had to go back and check it wasn't a funeral, not a wedding. What's wrong with this guy? And then went home early just to be petty. Sister-in-law was right to have you take care of her. Good job. At the wedding, not funeral, lol. The funeral of their friendship. My, condolences it didn't end sooner. You are the best sister-in-law ever. You saved the bride from having a miserable wedding and reception with wedding photos of her mother competing with her in a white dress. Queen of not the a-hole. This, when we were still planning a big wedding, COVID happened. I told my bridesmaids they would have to be on mum of the bride duty. My mother ruined my college graduation, screamed at me in public, refused to attend despite being on campus, and has a bad habit of making every event about her through tantrums. Sister-in-law knew what she was asking for when she asked you to handle it. If I was sister-in-law, I'd be worshipping the ground you walk on. Lamau? You're obviously not the a-hole. Who the hell wears a white dress to a wedding? You did exactly what the bride asked you to, don't worry. A bride wears a white dress to a wedding. That was easy, give me another. Should I propose and come out/announce that I'm pregnant at someone else's wedding? No, I'm on a roll here. Should I smash that subscribe and like button for Markee? Who knows, I'll let you guys decide. Posted by user oldboysenberry4160, titled, Am I the a-hole for getting upset with boyfriend for turning off Wi-Fi? I am taking 3 college courses online. I break each course up into 2 days a week per course. So I do schoolwork 6 days a week for about 4 hours each day, including studying. This has never been an issue with my boyfriend, as we are still able to spend plenty of time together. Today, I had a test for one of my courses. It was due by 11 p.m. There is only one opportunity for the test, and this course, I'm struggling a little bit with the material. So I spoke with my boyfriend and asked him to please not disturb me for a few hours while I study and did my test. He agreed and told me he'd play his game while I studied, and after, we'd have a date night. I studied for an hour, then got a drink real quick and kissed boyfriend and said I was going to take the test now. He said, "Great, I'm almost done with the game. I'll shower and get ready for our date." I said okay and went back to the room. I was 5 minutes into my test when the page wouldn't load. I checked my internet connection on my laptop and it wasn't connected. I went and asked my boyfriend if he did something to the Wi-Fi. He said yeah, I had to restart the router and modem, my game stopped loading. I asked why he didn't say anything to me, as he knew I was taking a test. He said that it would connect again in just a minute and I could finish the test and it wasn't a big deal. I said it was, since he knew I was doing a test and he cut the Wi-Fi without telling me. Well, the Wi-Fi didn't immediately reconnect. It took 45 minutes to figure out the problem. He managed to snap a piece off the cord and it wouldn't properly reconnect to the router. He had an extra, but it took a while to find it. When I was finally able to get back on my test, I had 10 minutes left to answer 55 questions. I just barely passed with a low C. I told him I felt he intentionally messed up my test, since he knew which class it was for and he gave no prior warning to turning off the internet. He said I told him not to disturb me and he was just following orders. I said no. I just think you're a jerk because you know how much I've been struggling with this course and you sabotaged my test for a stupid bloody game. He said I was a bear and left the apartment. I called a friend, who agreed with him that since I said not to disturb me, he was just doing as told. Am I the a-hole here? Did I overreact? No, you didn't overreact. Whether he wants to snap out of denial or not, he genuinely did sabotage your test so he could play a stupid game. The boyfriend can put away the game for an hour and do something else with his time. He has a phone, he has books, he can go for a run, he can do anything. Yet he intentionally chose to disconnect the internet, all for a stupid game. Education overrules games, especially in this context. No arguments there, the boyfriend needs to apologize, and really work to make it up to her. Jesus, he's really deflecting guilt and responsibility for this, and that's disgusting. OP, not the a-hole, you deserve to be treated much better than that. Not the a-hole. He was being selfish and focusing only on his needs. Don't forget the passive-aggressive. You told me not to disturb you so I couldn't check with you before cutting off the Wi-Fi during your test, as well as the manipulative. You just don't want to go on a date with me. This guy sucks. Him turning off the Wi-Fi very obviously disturbed her, so I would say that even trying to use the do not disturb excuse is steaming BS. Agreed. It's a dig at her asking to have some time to herself for the test, and it's a selfish pretext for doing what he wanted to do without caring about the effect on her schooling. I think the phrase is, "Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's rain." Where do posters on here find friends and family? It's almost always friends and family members agree that I was wrong, etc. Not the a-hole big time. Cutting the internet for any reason while you were doing a test is wrong, but for the sake of a game? That goes beyond inconsiderate and fully into disrespectful and just being a complete jerk. Is this an isolated event with him, or is he always so selfish and idiotic? Not the a-hole, drop the friend and the boyfriend. This is some BS. It really is common sense to let someone know you're going to do something that will affect their test. I'm sorry, OP, what a crappy thing to do. OP replies, I understand that things happen and sometimes the need to reset the Wi-Fi. When I've had to do it, I've always let him know, and any friends that might be over, that it was going to be cut out, or I wait until a time that it's not being used. I just felt so let down that my grade could have been better if I had the proper chance to do the test. Posted by user Selene, titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my therapist she's not worth $200 an hour?" I started seeing a therapist 3 years ago. In time, I felt she wasn't a great fit or a great therapist. Reasons: 1, she was chronically late, even though she had lunch before my session. We regularly started 10 minutes late or more, which is a big deal when I'm coming in the middle of my workday and can't stay late, which I did call out and request time added to the next session, which she did not like. 2, she kept pushing practices on me that I don't use. I got tired of saying, after X stressful thing happened, I meditated for 10 minutes and felt much better. And her saying, did you try Y? Next time try Y instead of meditation. Why would I do that? I'm doing something that works and I'm comfortable with. Why keep pushing something else? And 3, she felt like she was just phoning it in a lot. In the beginning, she felt engaged and like she was paying attention and pushing me to improve my mental health. But over time, it didn't feel like she was helping me anymore. I started to think I should look elsewhere for therapy. Then a bizarre situation with billing came up this year. She wanted to know what my total deductible was, and for me to pay her $200 per session until my entire deductible was filled, then switch to the lesser payments once my coverage took over. I was seeing other specialists during this time. Those visits were also taken out of my deductible. Her wanting me to pay her my entire deductible made no sense, and was going to cost me more money. We got that straightened out, but that was the nail in the coffin, and I was going to look for a new therapist and drop her. Then Corona happened, and I thought that it might be better to stay for now, though the therapy continued to be lackluster. Last session, she announced that she's opting out of taking insurance, so in some months, I'd need her to pay her whole fee, $200, myself. I said that I'd have to end our relationship. I am seeing an in-network therapist because of money. She then says, well, I think I'm worth $200 a month, to which I said, I don't. I feel like a total a-hole for saying that. The silence was thunderous. While kicking myself repeatedly, I weakly told her that I had felt for some time like maybe our connection wasn't the greatest, and that while I wished her individual practice well, I couldn't afford it, and didn't feel like our connection had been that great for a while, so it's probably best to end there. We hung up on that note, but she texted me after, asking for reasons. I mentioned the above points, and she pushed back saying I should have said something. But I did call out 1 and 2 in the moment. She pushed back more, so I said, I apologize for hurting your feelings. I wish you and your practice all the best, but I don't have anything to say further. And put her on mute. Am I the a-hole? I do wish I'd handled it better, but at the same time I think I addressed most of our issues head on, and she didn't want to hear them. I don't think so. I don't think you're an a-hole for doing that. Part of therapy is to help you gain your confidence, is it not? Or at least help deal with your issues. And if one of your issues was dealing with, confronting situations, well then she put you in a confronting situation and you dealt with it confidently. It's okay to speak your mind, and as your therapist, she should be enabling such a positive attitude or approach to it. I can understand being upset at the $200 a month, but by the way you worded it, it seems like she keeps pushing boundaries and making you uncomfortable and telling you to do things that don't work. And I applaud you for what you've done, OP. I definitely don't think you're an a-hole. Edit. Thank you all so much, especially the therapists, for your support and pointing out that her I'm worth $200 was completely unprofessional and uncalled for. Also, for pointing out that the texting afterwards was wildly unprofessional and not something a therapist should do. For the record, this is the first time either of us ever texted each other, and the message wasn't, got your message that we won't be doing therapy this week, see you next week. I wanted to mention a few other things that came up repeatedly in the comments. She was a really good therapist for longer than the first year, and we had 2 conversations about the deductible that were completely normal. So the start, and a large part, of our relationship was very good, and I made great progress with her for quite a while. She helped me out enormously at first, and even when things originally went a bit downhill, she was helping me and seemed like she was still a solid therapist. The other thing was a few people pointing out that me shooting down her suggestions may make her disengage. To be clear, I only shoot down the suggestions she made about me changing behaviors that were working well for me. If I came to her with a behavior or thought pattern that was not working for me and she had suggestions, I was willing to try them until I found something that works. But if she wanted me to change a behavior that had helped me for years, why would I do that? Every other therapist I've ever gone to worked on top of a foundation of whatever already worked for me. So long as it wasn't an unhealthy behavior, I've never had a therapist push me away from doing something that helps me try something new. Anyways, I feel much better about really knowing that her behavior really wasn't okay on multiple levels. I've had therapists before that I didn't click with, but I've never had one that did anything unethical or unprofessional before, and this ending was a sad, crappy end to what had been a really productive relationship. Kelly Margaret says, "Not the a-hole. A therapist that doesn't listen when you mention an issue about her being late or the constant need to get more of your money and not insurance is just weird. With these problems, how are you supposed to trust her to help you with your life? You did the right thing." Selene says, "When the money thing happened, for whatever reason, that's when I lost all trust. I've had therapists that were really great, but chronically tardy, but they acknowledged it, and they would be the ones to say, 'Let's extend your next session by 10 minutes next time,' or make it clear that they knew it was something they needed to work on before I brought it up, and it would wax and wane with time, and they were overall worth it. But the money thing was like, I was already more and more on the fence about continuing therapy with her, as it was because it seemed like there were more and more off days than on days, and I guess the money thing made it feel like she only saw me as a paycheck and not as a person she was being paid to help, and I felt pretty done. I got the feeling she would take your $200 and still charge your insurance. She was definitely acting suspiciously. I couldn't fully explain that part in the post. Let's say my deductible is $2,000, insurance pays nothing until I pay $2,000 out of pocket. So her way, I pay her for 10 visits, totaling $2,000. 4 Jan visits, 4 Feb, 2 March. Then I pay her $20, and insurance pays her something like $100, because once they start paying, she has to accept what they will offer and not get her full price. However, in reality, I also see a pain management doctor twice a month. Let's say he also charges $200 just to keep it easy. January, I pay her $800 for 4 visits and him $400 for 2 visits. February, I pay her $600 for 3 visits and him $200 for 1 visit. And then my deductible is filled. So I pay her fully for a total of 7 visits for $1,400 before she starts getting the lower payments. When she brought up what she wanted to do, I was confused because 1, we'd never did this before, though she insisted we did, and also insisted all her other patients did this. 2, this would mean I'm paying her $600 more than I should be, which, if I was in the market to pay someone out of pocket, I wouldn't be seeing an in-network therapist for. So it was super shady, and I'm not totally sure how she was going to manage it insurance-wise, but after already really feeling like she wasn't helping me, I now felt like she wasn't helping me anymore and trying to take advantage of me. Not the a-hole. You did the right thing and you let her know. She got way more time than she deserved. It's amazing how people act crappy, you mention it a few times as a warning, then quit them. Now that they won't be getting your money, kindness, etc., it's a huge deal. I just don't have time to waste on people like this anymore. No matter what, it could never be their fault. To be honest, I feel so much better having them out of my life as opposed to giving them chance after chance, begging them to change because they rarely do. Am I the a-hole for wanting my stay-at-home wife to be thankful? So my wife stays at home with our almost 2-year-old son. She dreamt of being a stay-at-home mum her whole life, and we had discussed and agreed on that before we were married. It took several years to get a place where we hoped we would be able to afford it. Every decision I've made since we got married has been focused on helping her make this dream a reality for her. But lately, I've been starting to feel burnt out. I had to pick up a second job and am working over 80 hours a week for the past year and a half. Most weekdays, I get to see our son for around an hour between the two jobs, with our dinner being around half of that. I get 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night during the week, and I only work 8 hours on Saturday and Sunday, so those aren't as bad. I do not resent her for getting to stay at home with him. I think that it's great for the both of them. We made that decision together, and I have worked extremely hard to be able to give her that. I'm proud of everything I did to be able to do this for her. But my issue is, there is zero appreciation for all that I have done, and it doesn't seem to be enough. She is constantly upset with me, complaining how we can't afford to go on a trip she wants, or buy some expensive thing. Almost every day she is the victim, and I can't ever communicate or vent what I'm going through. She can't understand why I'm getting tired or burnt out, and keeps mentioning how much harder it is for her. I understand being a stay-at-home mum is not a vacation, but I'm currently super pumped if I get a half hour to myself a couple times a week, while she's watching Netflix 5 to 6 hours a day without the son. He sleeps 12 hours straight every night and takes 2 naps. She'll finish a season of a show every couple days. Even so, I'm not upset that she gets that kind of free time. I am upset that she isn't even slightly thankful or appreciative of what I do for her, and even worse, makes herself the victim and complains about her situation. It breaks my heart, and it makes me feel like all this stuff I spent forever on was for nothing, that it was wasted. In my mind at the time, it was worth doing all this because I was doing it for her, giving her this amazing gift. I was literally making her dreams come true. But it seems like it still isn't enough, and I'm not sure what more I could do and still stay sane. I'm barely hanging on as it is. Am I too in my head about this, and am I the a-hole for making myself a victim? I don't think so. I think she really does need to appreciate all the hard work you're doing, and maybe she should start the process of not being a stay-at-home mum anymore if she's such a victim to it all. It seems to me, from the outside looking in, she's losing purpose in her life, that, she's not productive, she's not contributing to society. So she's not occupied with socializing or a job like other people with a job do. I don't think you're too in your head, and I don't think you're an a-hole, but you're not making yourself a victim in this. You are a victim, and you're not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. But if you have to have 2 full times for her not to work, you cannot afford your current lifestyle. Either she needs to work, or your lifestyle needs to change. I second this super hard. I third it. It's time to sit down and review the situation with her. Go through the finances and the number of hours you are working, and review whether it's time that she needs to consider getting a part-time job to ease your burden. You sound like you're at the point that allowing her to live her dream is causing you to live a nightmare. That isn't healthy or sustainable for the whole family. Either that, or you need to work out further places you can economize. I don't think she articulated her dream correctly. I think she probably wants a life of ease. She's complaining about no trips and expensive things. She didn't want to be a stay-at-home mum, she wanted to be a kept woman. Yep, sounds like she just wants to not work and live in luxury. Don't we all? But if you're demanding that at the expense of someone else's sanity, then you're a major a-hole. Absolutely not the a-hole. What kind of person dares to complain about finance to someone working their ass off, but not do anything to earn some themselves? Stay at home is fine, but this is very unbalanced. You can't keep this up. 80 hours is way too much. Someone who has a clear view of what role they want, and that every other responsibility falling on the other person simply isn't their problem. This is why there is no empathy. I have been OP and heard the same responses. As time goes on, you get hostile entitlement from them as above, where your concerns are turned to attacks back on you to firstly deflect from their entitlement, and so you stop bringing it up. You were shamed into capitulating. OP needs to cut his hours and bond with those 2 kids, and unless childcare makes it pointless, she must work to relearn the value of effort outside the home. I waited too long to take action, so divorce was the only option, and let's just say, her perception of what she wanted as a settlement brought laughter when my solicitor saw it. One thing I do know is my ex genuinely had lost all concept of any effort made by anyone but her. I don't fancy OP's chances of change here, as her thinking is as broken as my ex's was. Posted by user Morning Drinks Throw. Titled, Am I the a-hole for drinking in the morning and telling my girlfriend to leave me alone about it? Classic, I know this sounds bad, but, and throwaway because she knows my main. I, 29 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 27 female, for a year and a few months. She moved in with me just about 3 weeks ago. Honestly, since she's moved in, I've been feeling a bit smothered. She's currently unemployed due to COVID and doesn't seem to be very aggressively looking for work, and I feel like she sort of expects my attention all the time, and I feel like she's been scrutinizing me too much. I'm an essential worker and recently was moved to overnights. Yesterday morning when I got home from work at a little after 7 a.m, she wasn't awake yet. I was a little too wound up from work to go straight to bed, so I decided to pour myself a bourbon and sat down to find something mindless to watch on YouTube. My girlfriend got up maybe 15 or 20 minutes later and came into the living room where I was sitting. As I greeted her, I saw her eyes narrow as she looked at the glass in front of me and said, "Wait a minute, you're actually drinking?" "Yeah, so," I answered. "It's morning. Who drinks first thing in the morning?" I tried to explain to her that it wasn't first thing in the morning to me, that this was my evening time, and that just because I worked overnights didn't mean that I shouldn't be able to unwind after work with a drink like anyone else. But she couldn't seem to get past that it was morning. Finally, I'd had enough and told her that she needs to stop smothering me, that I'm a grown man, and unless I'm doing something egregious, that I shouldn't have to justify myself to her that I don't need her permission to have a drink. I told her that I was trying to relax and that if she was just going to give me a hard time, please just leave me alone. She's been pretty quiet with me since. I know I hurt her feelings, which I feel bad about, but I also think she was being unreasonable and somewhat controlling, and that I wasn't wrong to tell her to knock it off. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thanks everyone. I have to say, I went all the way to the bottom just out of curiosity over the unpopular opinions, and a couple in particular didn't deserve the downvotes. One suggested that this may have been mere growing pains for a couple newly learning to live together. Although I absolutely still think my girlfriend was being way too close-minded and somewhat controlling, I think that poster may have a point. My profession is a currently unpopular one and has a pretty abysmal divorce rate. And while my girlfriend was being unfair, I realized I also took my night out on her to an extent, and probably should have been more patient. Hopefully she can see my side too. To my aggressively seeking employment comment, most of my state has reopened, and while it's still a really tough job market, it's not abysmal by any extent. Also, to the absolute most downvoted comment, his/her username is a Skyrim reference, so he or she is automatically awesome. I think if your job is that demanding and bad as you say, with an abysmal divorce rate, it just brings a really negative connotation to my mind about what the job involves, and if you need a drink after that, I don't blame you for needing a drink. If that's your evening, I don't blame you for drinking. Everyone runs on their own time, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. So for you drinking in the morning and telling her to leave you alone about it, I think you're not an a-hole in that situation. Just because the sun's out, guns out, it's not the afternoon, doesn't mean you can't have a nightcap in the morning. Not the a-hole. This is completely her inability to understand that third shift work is different, so morning is also different. Her and so many other people who can't comprehend that sleeping during the day doesn't make you lazy, not the a-hole. Used to work overnights, and also my unemployed girlfriend hated that I was lazy because I slept until 3 p.m. Some people just don't understand simple concepts. When I worked overnight, my mum would call me on her lunch breaks to chat because it's not like you're doing anything. It took exactly one call at 3 a.m. on my lunch break to get her to stop trying to call me while I was sleeping. How was she on that call? She was initially panicked and thought something bad had happened, but once I informed her I just called it a chat and catch up, she said, "Oh, screw you," and hung up on me. Not the a-hole, you're right. It's not drinking in the morning if it's the end of your night shift. When else would you be able to relax with a bourbon? At breakfast? Are you judging my bourbon and oatmeal? Info. Have you told her you're feeling smothered? And OP replies, I have, yes, a couple of times now. She seemed a bit offended when I've said it, even though I've tried to say it as nicely as possible. I think smothered is a loaded word. I feel smothered easily, and have found that it's really not a useful starting point to say so. Instead of telling my husband that he's smothering me, I tell him that I'm not up for socializing and that I need to sit alone in a dark room for an hour or two. Instead of vilifying his desire to spend time with me, I describe my mood, an action I'm going to take to resolve it, and a rough timeline of when he can expect me back. He will do the same thing with taking a walk or reorganizing his closet when he needs some alone time. A big part of why I think our relationship has been successful is that we've learned to separate out our individual problems and our relationship problems, such as they are. Posted by user Personalized Guilt, titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to go out in public with my wife when she won't wear a bra? I've been married for almost 20 years. Lately, my wife has started to go out in public braless. She'll wear a t-shirt and it leaves almost nothing to the imagination. She complains that it's not comfortable to wear a bra and it's too hot outside. I don't care if she goes braless in the house, but out in public is a different story. Most people don't want to see a middle-aged woman's breasts bouncing around in a store. The ones who do are looking at her in a sexual manner. I'm embarrassed to be seen with her bra-free, and I'm constantly worried that I'm going to run into people that I know. She spent her whole life wearing a bra in public and never had a problem before. Last weekend we went into Walmart and it was obvious the cashier was staring at her. I don't like the idea of people getting their jollies from staring at my wife's boobs. I told her I won't go out in public with her anymore if she doesn't wear a bra. It would be more comfortable for me to wear my underwear in public too, but there's social etiquette. She believes it's her body and her right to not wear a bra. I think it's selfish. I don't see how wearing a bra can be that uncomfortable. Also, all women wear bras in public. TLDR, lately wife refuses to wear bra in public. I refuse to be seen in public with her if she doesn't. Lol, then there's your answer. Just don't be seen in public with her. Go do whatever you want without her. She doesn't deserve your attention. You're an a-hole and you obviously don't respect your wife's body if you're trying to put this amount of pressure on her. Let a woman live her life. There's so many women out there that go braless in public. No one actually cares, OP. It's all in your head. You're the one that cares, no one else. You're the a-hole. You can express an opinion on what your partner wears, but telling her what to wear and what not to wear crosses a line. Also, your post is all about you, not about her. I'm embarrassed. I'm constantly worried. I don't like the idea. Be pleased your middle-aged wife has chest worth staring at. Why don't you insist she wears a burqa to ensure no male can be accidentally aroused from looking at her? This 1,000 times. This post literally screams, my wife is doing something to her body and it's making me feel like this. Let her do what she wants to her body. You have no ownership here. I'd like to point out that she's not doing anything to her body, and that actually wearing a bra can be considered doing something to one's body. His wife is just letting her body exist comfortably as it is. He did not once take her comfort or wishes into consideration. I personally don't understand people like this. How can you be married for years to a person and still fail to have empathy for them? I love how he uses wearing underwear as an example, but there are no studies showing that underwear increases your risk of cancer. Also, victim blaming is so gross in this post. Her breasts aren't sexual inherently, they're just skin, and they're meant for feeding children or whatever the woman wants to do with them. If people are sexualizing her, it is their fault, and he should be upset at them instead of her. I was wondering if he thinks his wife's breasts are sexual just because they aren't covered. Does he also think that men with those big floppy man boobs are also sexual? I do. Does he tell all those guys to go home and put on a bra? Yeah, my mind works in mysterious ways. I'm just having a laugh, picturing him all red-faced and yelling at some random guy to cover his chest before all the men in the room lose control. Oh ho ho, do have some decency, love. You're the a-hole for this comment. I don't see how wearing a bra can be that uncomfortable. Yeah, OP should wear a bra every time he leaves the house for a week. I bet his tone would change. Especially when it's hot, humid, and there's underboob sweat. Posted by user Insane Approach. Titled, Am I the a-hole for making my kids get out of bed by 8 a.m. during the summer? I have 3 teenagers. As soon as they hit 13, I quit telling them to go to bed. Instead, I told them that on non-school days, they need to be up by 8 a.m. I also do not monitor when they go to bed during the school year, as long as they get up for school at 6 a.m. and grades stay acceptable. My reasoning for having a wake time rather than a bedtime is because as adults, no one will tell them when to go to bed, but they will have to get up for work, school, family, etc. It is to get them accustomed early to regulating their own sleep schedules before they enter college. I am up an hour before them, 5 a.m. on school days, 7 a.m. on weekends and summer, so I can get myself ready before they take up the bathrooms and get some breakfast ready for them if I have time. Recently, during a family gathering, my sister was saying how her teenagers, very close in ages to mine, had bedtimes at 9 p.m. on school nights and 10 p.m. on non-school nights. My other sister found these times unreasonable, and for their ages, I thought so too, but not my kids, so didn't say anything. I got pulled in when asked what time I made my kids go to bed and told them what I wrote above. All of a sudden, they forgot about my sister making her 17-year-old go to bed at 9 p.m. for more than half a year, and instead, wolf-packed on me about how unwieldy unfair I am on my poor kids by having them get up in the morning. Family members who were listening in and did not comment on my sister's bedtime demands had plenty to say about my kids having a wake-up time on days they didn't have school. I was accused of being controlling and overbearing. It became a bit heated and I went ahead and went home. Now I'm wondering if I'm wrong with my thought process. My husband agrees with me that learning how to get up on your own when you leave your parents is hard as hell, and thinks my reasoning is good. But he always agrees with me on parenting. I will point out, the kids were all excited when they turned 13 because go to bed wasn't something they would hear anymore, and our youngest teenager is 13. I've been doing this for years, and the kids haven't really complained. An occasional "I didn't sleep well" has been said, but always during the school year, never on breaks. So, am I the a-hole for not enforcing a bedtime, but instead a wake time for my kids? Editing to add, it is not about them getting up at 8 a.m. as much as getting them up at a set time. I am completely aware that a lot of jobs don't start until later in the day. The reason I use 8 a.m. is because none of them have any obligations past 9, and when my oldest was 13, 8 a.m. was what the APA was battling to get school times pushed back to for healthier teenagers. I figured if school was supposed to start at 8 a.m., that would get them up no later than 7 a.m., so I figured 8 a.m. would be a good compromise for time. The goal is for them to get up to an alarm and move, not roll over and go back to sleep. Go to sleep knowing what time they have to be up and be responsible for their time in the late evening and overnight, or drag ass the next day. I'm sorry if I didn't express that well in the original post. Edit 2. So, just got done talking to the kids. Told them about the new studies, as well as some of the family-friendly pieces of advice on here. At first, all 3 were adamant about keeping wake-up time at 8 a.m., but after pointing out that the studies showed they would need to be in bed by midnight, my oldest folded to be pushing off to 9 a.m. My youngest teenager was worried he wouldn't get to see me before I left, so I said it could be a day-by-day thing. If he felt like getting up at 8 a.m. to spend time with me, he could, but zero pressure to do so. Only the middle one is adamant about keeping 8 a.m. She says she already has her entire schedule for the day built around it and wants to keep it. So Monday through Friday, I will have 1 getting up at 8 a.m. and 2 getting up no later than 9 a.m. Saturdays and Sundays, work schedule allowing, they will be up by 10 a.m. Thank you for all your feedback, even the "you're the a-hole" feedback that also gave constructive advice. Thank you. I really appreciate it. All have agreed they are going to try it for a week, but if they feel stressed by less time during the day to get schoolwork done, we will revisit and reevaluate. I think everything that needs to be said has been said here. I think they were the a-hole going into this, and I now think that they have resolved it. They're not the a-hole anymore, so I'm happy to leave that where it is. But there is this one comment I want to read because it does give good advice outside of this. "You're the a-hole. Kids have almost zero control over their lives. My mum always said to let them sleep and choose their hair because the rest of the decisions are out of their hands." I agree with your mum on the hair thing. One of my kids has white hair right now, another blue. Lots of us seem to forget what I was like growing up. Having no control over things can be a big issue for lots of kids, even if we didn't experience the same thing. This is the most looked forward to part of the year for them. They finally have an inkling of freedom and choice. In my opinion, letting that grow into some free will is beneficial to the kids, not to mention it saves them from situations like this post. Posted by user AgitatedCoat1535, titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law that I'm divorcing her son?" Reddit, I'm in a conundrum. My soon-to-be ex, Jack, and I are in the middle of a divorce. Jack is very resistant to the idea and wants to try counseling. I'm not willing to try again. It didn't work the first 2 times I pushed for counseling, and when I asked several times if we could find a new therapist, he said no. But now that I've got proof he cheated with multiple women, he wants to try counseling again. Cue eye roll. At this point, I just want out. We didn't have kids, and there weren't a lot of shared purchases. To be honest, I'm willing to walk away with what I brought into the marriage, i.e. my dog and kitchen supplies. I managed to move out right before COVID restrictions started. Upon my moving day, I sent him a text quoting, "I've finished moving out. If you find anything of mine that I left behind, I don't want it anymore. Feel free to toss it or donate it." During mine and Jack's marriage, his mother gave me a box of knickknacks. They were Jack's maternal grandmothers, and I never met the woman, since she died before Jack and I met. When we lived together, I put the knickknacks in the living room on top of the mantle. When I moved out, I left them behind. They're not my style, and frankly, I didn't feel like they were mine to keep, since they were Jack's grandmother's things. Last week, I found a box on my front step. It was the knickknacks. There was a note in Jack's handwriting saying I'd forgotten them. I checked to make sure that I'd sent the text saying, "If you find anything of mine that I left behind, I don't want it anymore. Feel free to toss or donate it." Sent him a screenshot of the text and then drove over to his mother's house. If he doesn't want them, then they belong to his mother since it is her family heirlooms. I intended to only drop the box on her porch and leave, but she met me on the porch and I tell her what's in the box. She's confused that I'm bringing them back and starts asking questions. I only say that since Jack and I are in the middle of a divorce, I don't feel comfortable keeping his family heirlooms, especially since I'll be changing my name back after finalization. I left right after that, and Jack later texted me, mad that I told his mother about the divorce. I told him that we're getting a divorce, and I didn't want to stay married to him, and if he didn't want to get divorced, he shouldn't have cheated multiple times. We haven't spoken since then, although his mother keeps asking questions. So, am I the a-hole for telling his mother about the divorce? And would I be the a-hole if I told his mother he cheated? No, that's a perfectly normal thing to do in this situation. I don't think you're an a-hole for doing either of those things. I feel like the mother has a right to know, and he has a right to deal with the consequences of his actions in this one. You are not obliged to keep that to yourself, morally or legally, but especially morally. I feel like he was incredibly immoral in this situation, so I would tell her, and I wouldn't feel like an a-hole for doing so. Not the a-hole. Obviously, he's embarrassed for having to explain to Mummy how he is a cheating a-hole who doesn't respect his wife. Congrats on your new life. To be honest, I don't think he's explained that he cheated. Part of me is tempted to tell her, but the more mature part of me is winning. I just want this divorce over with. If I announce he cheated, he'll probably retaliate by dragging the divorce out. Well thought. Do the divorce first and then tell his mother. For me, it would be a good feeling knowing that his mother will annoy him until eternity, especially if she liked you. There is nothing more satisfying than getting out of a bad relationship and having your ex's parents still like you. Except getting the hell away from your ex's parents who hated you. God, don't we all feel that way, cock daddy Karen? Thank you for sharing. Not the a-hole at all. If his mother is asking, I'd tell her. It stops her having to invent her own reasons, and him being able to make something up that paints him in a better light. You don't need to give her the gory details, especially as you seem to be handling this in a much more mature way, and deliberately a less hurtful way, than I would, seeing as how I would have made an announcement on Facebook with my evidence and tagged his mother in there if it was me. Part of me is tempted to show her the proof I have of him cheating, but I also want to get the divorce over with too. Don't show the proof. She could share it with her son to recount it to him. Then that proof might be way less useful in court, should it come to that. Also, not the a-hole for sure. If I tell her, I'm probably going to wait until after the divorce is finalized. Posted by user Am I the A-hole of Fans? Titled, Am I the A-hole for subscribing to a friend's wife's OnlyFans account? Keeping it short, let me know if you need more detail. We're all mid to late 20s, friend's wife has an OnlyFans account. He knows about it and is fine with it. They need the extra cash as she lost her job and his hours were cut. He found out that I know about her OnlyFans and am subscribed. His feelings are, it's different when quote-unquote strangers are looking versus people they know. He wants me to unsubscribe and delete anything I may have. I'm kinda resistant because it's an OnlyFans account, not something private that was leaked or anything. As far as I know, she doesn't know I'm subscribed, only him, if that matters. I'd love to know how he found out that you're subscribed to her OnlyFans. But I guess you really don't have an obligation to not be subscribed to it anymore. But I probably would if this is someone you want to keep friends with. It kind of seems like a dick move to stay subscribed when he knows that you're subscribed and he doesn't want you to be. Like, it does make you an a-hole in that instance. You're not a good guy for going against the wishes of your friends, regardless of how you want to do it. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So you're the a-hole in this situation. You're the a-hole. I get it. She's making herself publicly available and you have every right to subscribe to her content. Doesn't mean you should. I think it's pretty tactless to pay money to see nude photos of your friend's wife. He asked you to stop, and I think that's a reasonable request. You don't have to listen, but don't expect the friendship to continue. It would be just as weird if you knew she was a stripper and went to the club specifically to see her, in my opinion. Exactly this. My ex was a stripper, and I would be weirded out to find out a friend was going to the club just to see her. You're the a-hole. Dude, you could get off to anyone in the world, and you chose to pay for your friend's wife pictures. Gross. This feels like you taking advantage of the fact they need money. If you wanted to be a good friend, you would have just given them the money. OP responded to this in other comments. In one comment, he said that he hasn't got off to her, but has seen her naked. And in another one, he said that the couple refuses to take money from their friends. He would have to pretend to accidentally make too much food so he could give them leftovers, and I'm not 100% sure what his motive is. I don't know if he just wants to see her naked or if he did it to help them out financially. He hasn't made that clear. If this is true then, it just got way more interesting. I love a toughie. I know, right? So he also said that he subscribed not knowing that it was her because he saw her post on a kink subreddit. He only realized it was her after he subscribed to her OnlyFans and saw her face. So now the question is, why is he staying subscribed? Does he really want to just keep seeing her naked despite his friend's discomfort, or is he staying subscribed because he wants to help them out financially and they won't take his money otherwise? A lovely can of worms. Compassion for thy neighbor through porn subscription. I love it. And if he's staying subscribed solely to help them financially, why would he not want to unsubscribe when his friend expressed it made him uncomfortable and he didn't like it? That's the fishy part about it, in my opinion. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my neighbor's kids, even if they thought it was harmless fun? I was working in my office yesterday when I heard loud bangs and splashes in my backyard, followed by laughing. I looked outside and saw my neighbor's kids were on their trampoline, throwing fruit from their trees into my backyard and trying to make shots in my pool basketball net. My pool had at least 20 pieces of fruit in it, and it was all on the cement. Luckily, my dog wasn't out there because she would have eaten it. I ran outside and yelled, "Stop that right now! Get down from there!" I don't think I've yelled that loud in my life. I startled them because they didn't know I was home, and one of them started crying while the other said, "I'm telling my mum you yelled at us," and then they took off for inside. My neighbor came out when I was cleaning the fruit out of the pool and asked why I yelled at her children, and I explained to her what had happened. She told me that they're just looking for things to do. Their whole summer was taken from them and they were just having fun, and it's my job to discipline them, not yours. I hadn't really had a whole lot of interactions with this neighbor, and this was probably the most I've talked to her. I yelled at them because they were destroying my pool, which now I'll have to drain, and they could have broken a window or hurt someone if any of my family were out there. So, am I the a-hole? I feel like this is one of the few exceptional circumstances where you can yell at someone else's kids. Just because there is so many factors going into play here, how much damage they potentially could be doing. Replace fruit with rocks. If they were throwing rocks at your pool, they're throwing rocks at your windows, you'd probably yell at them for that. Fruit's going to do just as much damage if it gets into the pool filtration system. It's going to get into the mouths of the dog and potentially harm it. Who knows? I really don't blame you for yelling at them. It's one of the only ways to get them to stop. What, are you just going to go ask them kindly, "Please stop throwing the fruit, please"? That's not going to get anything done. Opie, you're not the a-hole. I can't think of anything that you can do, but I know that if I were you, they'd have a big pile of smashed fruit on their front porch the next morning. However, I am an a-hole. We should be friends. You sound like my kind of people. Ha! I guess if you're also petty and vengeful. Not the a-hole. Hire a pool service to evaluate the pool and what needs to be done, then present her with the bill. Pretty sure this qualifies as vandalism. I thought about handing her the bill, but it's just easier to pay for it myself. Also, it is extremely frowned upon by someone here that I am draining my pool. The reason I am doing that is because they were throwing fruit, some of it rotten, and it was exploding and the juice was in the water. With rotten fruit comes possible mold and other things. I'm not having my family swim in that. Pay for it yourself if you want, but still send the bill. Is there another parent in the picture? Maybe try and explain to them how much damage the kids did when trespassing and how they could have injured themselves or caused even more expensive damage to your home. Well, they weren't trespassing though. OP clearly states they were on their trampoline in their yard tossing fruit. It doesn't justify what the kids did, but it's not trespassing. You're right. It's just vandalism, destruction of property. You do not need to physically enter the land to trespass, specifically for reasons like this. No, he has a point. Look up the landmark case of totally not touching you versus, "But mom!" Not the a-hole. I'm getting old. I remember when you didn't tell your parents that the neighbor yelled at you. 95% of the time you deserved it. It's my job to discipline them, not yours. Then get to it, woman. Exactly. If that's her job, she's terrible at it. Worse yet is her inability to acknowledge the mistake of her children, which is an extension of her own inability to supervise. The moment she defended her kids' actions, when they did something no one should be doing, one failure of a parent right there. If you're a good little parent who has read Rousseau, you send them over to clean up their mess under the authority of the offended party. Shame and work. The consequences of their actions felt on mind and body. It's an effective way to reduce the chance of that kind of misbehavior happening again. Seriously, If my kid came in and told me the neighbor yelled at him about this same scenario, we'd have a long talk about how much it would suck for someone to trash their bed/room space and then marching them right over to apologize and try to make amends. That a parent would actually be upset at the neighbor is bananas. Posted by user Mirror Scary, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not offering a family heirloom ring to the daughter who got married first?" I have 2 daughters, Claire and Emma, who have never gotten along well. Claire was the rebellious one growing up, hated any type of societal expectations, and Emma was much more conventional. Claire began dating her now husband when she went away to college, and the first time she brought him home, my husband was not happy. He had black nail polish and a streak in his hair. I actually had a conversation with my husband about how he can't be such a pompous ass, and he is going to drive Claire away. Neither of us like her husband, but we try to bite our tongues. He did not ask my husband for her hand in marriage, and when they told us they were engaged, she already had a ring. Emma also met her husband in college, and he was much more clean-cut and someone my husband would approve of. Emma's fiancé came to us before he proposed and asked permission. This did endear him more to my husband, and my husband told him that he had a family heirloom ring that he had received in his mother's will, and if he wanted to use it for Emma, he could. It is a very expensive ring, and it was left to my husband on the condition I never wear it. Long story short, mother-in-law hated me. He did offer it to me, but it didn't feel right. Emma's fiancé accepted the ring, and Claire found out and thinks that we punished her for making different choices, being with a man we don't like, and not going along with a sexist tradition. I feel like it was my husband's ring to do what he wanted, and since Claire's husband didn't tell us before he proposed, she already had a ring, and we are not playing favorites. Sounds like you're playing favorites. Sounds like you lied by omission so that you could play favorites, and that's an a-hole thing to do. He had black nail polish and a streak in his hair. God, I don't know how both of you got through that. What a trying time. You're the a-hole for favoring one daughter over another. Not everyone is clean-cut and follows the same path. Why don't you like Claire's husband? You didn't really explain that. What is the father going to do? Split the ring in half? If Claire got the ring, I'd say Emma would be ticked and you'd still call the father an a-hole. OP said herself that her husband is a pompous ass, and that even way prior to the ring issue, she's talked to him about not driving Claire away with his attitude. I get the feeling that Claire has been dealing with his disapproval of who she is for a number of years. Sounds like favoritism to me. OP said her mother-in-law didn't like her because OP was having an affair with her now husband while married. Insane to be judging other people's marriages, especially your kids, based on how they look. People are absolutely crazy when it comes to this stuff. I met a Catholic priest at a hotel once while traveling for work. We got to talking, and he said the thing that worried him the most about youth today was body modification. I expected him to say mental health, issues, abuse, education, joblessness. Nope, bloody tattoos. The myopia is something else. I think he thought I'd be receptive because I have no tattoos or piercings, but I noped out of there fast. That's because body modification is visible. How else would he judge others? You're the a-hole for expecting your sons-in-law to ask permission to marry your daughters. The only permission they need is from the woman they are marrying. You do not own your daughters. Also, you're the a-hole for not even offering the ring to the first daughter to wed. It smacks of favoritism. Huh, she already had one, why would he offer her another? But if she wasn't going to offer it to her first daughter to get engaged, she should have thought of another solution. She knew she had the ring and had to know this was going to be a thing. They are no longer 5 years old. You do not need to make sure you give each child a doll on the other's birthday so that they don't throw a tantrum. She had a ring, she doesn't get another. And frankly, if she's so against their family traditions, why should she assume she'll get the ring? My best friend's family have expensive crystal and silver ornaments they use every Christmas. Absolutely gorgeous heirlooms. Her sister converted to Judaism when she got married. Friend is still attending the same church as her parents. Guess who's getting the ornaments? OP's sister didn't want it for the sentimental value or symbolism, just the monetary value, or because it's prettier and shinier than the one she has. It's not favoritism, it's a result of her choice to be independent and separate from her parents and their rules. I'm sure there are some other benefits to that. What family traditions is she so against? Either way, neither knew about the ring, so no one had sentimental value for it. The reason the daughter is upset is because it's another example of their parents disrespecting her marriage and favoring her sister, which the OP acknowledges and even told her husband to tone it down. OP even says if the first engaged daughter had known about and asked for the ring, she wasn't sure she would have given it to her, so she's clearly using it to show her favoritism. Posted by user Spits Like a Llama, titled, "Would I be the a-hole if I refused to be part of my in-laws' family tradition?" My husband and I have been together for almost 6 years, married for 3. We have a 1-year-old. I love his family, but I struggle with the differences in how they treat their son, my significant other, versus their daughter, my sister-in-law. Anything she wants, she gets. I don't start drama, however, I will stand up for what I think is right, and it occasionally causes tension. They have a wonderful tradition where they create a picture calendar for their grandma for Christmas. Every month highlights the people whose anniversaries or birthdays it is. The rest is filled in with loving memories. Since we got married, I am now in a couple of the photos. I felt loved to have been included in such a tradition, but last year caused issues. Our son's birthday and our anniversary fall on the same month. No one else shares anything special with this month. His parents told us we could design that page with the 3 of us however we like. I choose 4 photos, 1 of our son just born, 1 of us as a family, 1 of him with his great-grandma, and 1 of just my husband and I. We create the page and send it. We stop by one night to continue helping them. My husband is better at doing it online than them. When I realized, my sister-in-law has swapped out 1 of the photos for a picture of her with my son. I made a comment about how that is not what we designed, and she tells me she likes it that way and wants to use that photo. At this point in time, she's in roughly 75% of the photos/book. 12 months, each with 4 pictures per page, equals 48 photos. She is in almost 36 out of 48. Has a whole page dedicated to just her, and a good portion of her photos are of just her. I suggest she take out of her photos from a previous month and use that one instead. I then changed it back to the photo I wanted. She ushers us out of the house. Christmas comes around and the calendar is brought out. She had changed it back to the photo she wanted. I was furious but let it go because 1, it was for grandma who I adore. 2, we didn't pay for it. His parents did and sister-in-law chipped in a little bit, but we offered. This year, I offered to help with the calendar again and got told she has a special idea for this year. She wants to do recreation photos. Take an older photo and using the same people to take the photo again. I think it's a great idea and understand that it means my son and I won't be in it. I'm sad, but still offer to help. She declines. Then I find out she wants to do half the book with special recreation. She wants to take some of grandma's old photos and use the new gen to recreate them. I think this is great, and now my son and I can at least be in 1 photo. Nope. She wants her grandma in every shot. Wants to use my significant other as grandma's husband, and my son as my father-in-law as a baby. They have no use for me. I mention this makes me upset, and I want to be part of this tradition, and upon her parents pushing, she tells me I can take the group family photos. Would I be the a-hole if I tell them no? That if I can't be in it, I don't want anything to do with it. Update, wow, this has taken off. Thanks for all the love. So a few hours after I posted, my significant other came home for lunch and inquired as to why my phone was blowing up. I told him. He was ticked. Turns out sister-in-law told him a little about the ideas and that the whole family was involved. He assumed that meant me. He is now refusing to do anything unless I'm part of it, and that our son will not be in anything unless we are part of it too, unless it's a gen pic, i.e. grandpa with grandson. He said I am his most important family. Now he wants nothing to do with the calendar. I am trying to talk him into talking to his parents first, as this is a lovely tradition. I just want to be a part of it too. No, I don't think you're an a-hole for wanting to be, all or nothing in this. I don't blame you for feeling left out. It really sucks when you're left out of something, especially family, especially friends, it really hurts. And to continually make compromises or ways that you can contribute and then be shut down, that hurts even more. So I like the update, I like where this is going, and I wish you all the best, but you're definitely not the a-hole for pushing in this situation. I hope your sister-in-law reads how many strangers think she has behaved like a total a-hole here. You're about to get a tidal wave of not the a-hole. Maybe you should print out all of the comments on one page and arrange them prettily for a new 13th month, a-holuary. Not the a-hole. She really has taken this fun thing and made it her own little fiefdom, hasn't she? How petty of her. Do your own project, send grandma a nicely framed photo of you and your lovely family to make up for the lack of you all in the calendar this year. If anyone asks, insist that she didn't invite the family to participate, which is true, as she specifically excluded you. Don't be loud about it. Don't get into arguments about it. Just do your own thing. That's the best revenge. We are creating a picture book based around our little guy's first year for her. My husband and I decided that we will just do our own thing. I'm sorry, but is it just me, or is it really creepy she wants to do an elaborate photo shoot wherein her brother is her husband? Maybe I'm reading too deeply into it, but she literally wants to recreate a family portrait with your son and husband and put herself in the place of the wife. Logically, I understand they may have a resemblance to the grandparents in question, but something about it feels off to me. Yeah. Posted by user Throwaway 10191817, titled, Am I the a-hole for calling my dad's wife weak? Backstory. My 16 female, dad and mum, both 37 female and 40 male, got a divorce 2 years ago because my father cheated on my mother. Her, the mistress, and my dad got married 2 months after my parents got a divorce. My parents have joint custody of me and my siblings, 17 male and 16 male, my twin brother. We're all close and decided we wanted to visit our father, his wife and her kids, 16 and 15 female. The father passed. Every 2 weeks, since it was either that or we'd have to spend our holidays with them, mother's orders, which we all didn't want. I don't like the 2 teenage girls, and neither do my brothers. They've called us the N-word multiple times. Our dad is Italian while our mum is black. My stepsisters and stepmom are white. Usually stay out late, smoke, etc. We were at my dad's house. My brother, twin, and I were playing video games in the living room. My stepsister, 16, wanted to watch TV even though she has a TV in her room. We told her to give us half an hour since we hadn't been playing for long. My stepsister called us both ghetto N-word out of nowhere, and my stepmother came downstairs to ask what happened. I explained to her what happened, and she told me, Anna, random name, I've talked to you about this. Stop being weak. I asked her if my stepsister would be getting a consequence, and she told me no because I was being weak, and then added, for a black girl. I responded by saying, I'm weak, yet you don't have enough respect for yourself to leave a man who forgot to tell you he had a wife and kids, since she wasn't aware my father had a family while he was cheating with her. She went ballistic, and my brother, 17, who had just woken up, had to hold her back. I feel kind of guilty, but I also don't. Now I'm waiting for my dad to get home. Am I the a-hole? No, my parents don't know about the racism. Edit 2, my mother wants us to have a relationship with our father, and I'm not sure if my dad is aware of the racism. Edit 3, to all the people asking, I'll post an update later. They didn't make an update post, unfortunately. I don't think they're an a-hole for calling out the racism here. I don't think they should be hanging out at that house if they're going to be, attacked by these people and then the mum's going to defend it and attack them. I would just remove myself and go live with the other parents. It's not an environment you want to be in. You're not the a-hole for calling it out. Your father is the worst a-hole in this story, cheating on his wife and then marrying a woman who was racist towards his own children. I assume you've told him about the racial slurs? Obviously, the mother and her kids are awful as well. If you haven't told your dad, or even if you have, tell your mum. This environment, plus your dislike of it, might be enough for your mum to get sole custody. I haven't told my parents about it, and I don't know if my brothers have said anything. You really, really should. Your mother is black, and your father married a black woman and has black children. Regardless of the situation as a whole, I'm sure they will want to know about the blatant racism happening under their nose. Edit. To add, abusers often rely on abuse staying hidden. They rely on the fact that victims are too uncomfortable, upset, and afraid of someone's reaction, /exhausted, etc. to bring the situation up with others. They are purposefully making you feel terrible, and making you feel unable to share your hardship so they continue the cycle of treating you poorly. Not the a-hole. Stop going over there. If your dad wants to see you, it can be a place where you aren't getting racially abused. I haven't told my parents, and I don't think my brothers have either. My mother wants us to have a relationship with our father, so we have to go over to his house. To be fair, your mother doesn't know what kind of environment she's sending you into. In addition to disclosing the racist bullcrap these a-holes have been saying, you must also disclose to both your parents, I'd call your mum while waiting on your dad right now, that your stepmother would have hit you if your brother didn't hold her back. ETA, I must emphasize that time is of the essence. Your stepmother is probably concocting her own story as we speak. Yes, great points. What woman can't control herself better than that? To try and attack a child you know has already been through a horrible time with the breakup of their family that the stepmom participated in. Compassion is what this woman should have in her heart. Sounds like the stepmom has some nastiness inside that maybe dad hasn't even realized yet. Most racist children learn that from those closest to them. Posted by user He Was Barefood. Titled, Would I Be the A-hole for having my cousin arrested? Backstory. A few months ago, pre-COVID, my cousin, who I am close to, had a big co-ed baby shower thrown for her. I was in attendance along with my husband. Another cousin was visiting her parents, my aunt and uncle, and decided to attend the baby shower as well. I'm not close to this cousin at all. We didn't grow up together and are 10 years apart in age. We are obligatory Facebook friends though, mostly due to my aunt and mother asking us to both add each other. Skip ahead to the present day. A few days ago, I got a call from a bank that I have a credit card through, inquiring about my balance not being paid, as I have always paid my outstanding bills on time. I told the bank employee I had not used my card, so that charge was fraud. The card account was immediately closed, and they began the process of looking further into it. Today, they called me back with an update. The charge was for a donation to a charity that I knew of, but have never contributed to myself. Still confused about why my card was used, I posted a short rant on Facebook. I got a few replies telling me this had never happened to them, and hoping I got it all resolved soon. Then, my younger, non-pregnant cousin commented something to the effect of, well, maybe someone had a good reason for making the donation in your name. Maybe someone wanted to teach you a lesson. The comment was weird, so I PM'd her to ask her what she meant. At first, she wouldn't tell me what she meant, but eventually I got her to tell me everything. She used my CC to make a donation. Her reason? Because about a year ago, I began going to church. I didn't grow up in a religious family. I'm not vocal about my newfound beliefs. I don't throw it in people's faces or demand they believe the same. It's just something that I like for my own life. It makes me feel better and more relaxed. Apparently, my cousin has a problem with me deciding to attend and join a church of any kind, and because of that, she decided it was a good idea to sneak around and take photos of my credit card, and then use the info to make a $1,000 donation to a local organization she knew I would never donate to because they are very outspoken about opposing what I believe morally. My husband says I should press charges and have her arrested. My mum says that's going too far, even though my cousin was in the wrong, because she's only 19. So, would I be the a-hole for pressing charges on my cousin and possibly ruining her life? Edit, the organization is not anti-gay or anything like that. It's not PP either. FYI, I'm a gay male who is pro-choice, so stop assuming I'm some kind of intolerant lunatic. Edit 2. It seems I'm not allowed to post an update separately. The bank is proceeding with legal action. She's being held accountable by them. I'm still undecided, as it's mostly out of my hands now. No, I don't think you're an a-hole for, reporting someone for doing credit card fraud in your name. That's just not right, and they know it's not right, and then they incriminate themselves by saying they did it maliciously against you by taking photos. What more proof do you need that they were just being an a-hole in this situation and basically stealing money from you? Go right ahead, sue them for damages, do whatever you want in this situation, call them out in front of the family, they've already dug their grave, might as well bury them while you're at it, OP. You're definitely not the a-hole in this situation. Not the a-hole. She committed a crime to teach you a lesson? Sis, teach her a lesson, OP. Well, OP, also, you have to keep in mind, if she's willing to do this, what else will she do in the future? Card fraud is just a gateway to identity theft. Millions of families suffer every year. Michael! This isn't a joke, Jim. Whoa. Not the a-hole. Press charges. Post haste, OP. I'd also add to that, at this point, it would be to cover their own ass. Can only imagine a credit company would bill you if you know who made the charge and don't press charges. Absolutely this. If you don't report it, you could get in trouble. Go armed with screenshots. Familial identity theft is the most common form of fraud there is. OP will 100% get her money back only if she presses charges. Same thing if your parents die and you found out they took out loans in your name. You have to press charges against their estate. I learned this in research because my dad took out credit cards in my name and it scared the crap out of me. I'm 30, didn't press charges because he is paying them off, but it's still an option if he stops and he knows it. It's scary knowing that your parents know so much about you, and it's pure luck if you are born into a household of good people. I say we should shed our baby's social security number at 18 and have to apply for a new one at 18. I've considered changing mine a few times, but there is a slew of issues doing that at my age. Not the a-hole. That's not a spiteful prank because she doesn't agree with your religion. That is seriously illegal and she needs to know that. I would definitely turn her in. That could have messed up your credit and your life. If there is any chance that she copied any other cards or information, you should probably cancel them all and get new ones for yourself. And OP replies, the bank, who I also have a checking and savings account with, automatically changed my debit card number and recommended I do the same with any other credit card companies, which I did this afternoon. My cousin also said she didn't think $1,000 was a big deal since my husband makes good money, but that's a stupid argument. Posted by user Life Insurance Policy 2, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter to stop bugging me after I never refurbished my life insurance policy? So early in my husband and I's marriage, we got life insurance policies on each other. We also had secondary beneficiaries in the form of my husband's nephews in the unlikely event we both went together. This was pre us having kids, and we always said once we did, we'd switch over the policies. Fast forward 25 years later, we have kids that are 21 and 23. My daughter, 23, made a comment about getting life insurance through her job, so I decided to check on our policy. I hadn't in years. Well, when I did, I was surprised to see that we had never changed our secondary beneficiaries. They were still my husband's nephews. We totally forgot to change them. I thought it was a little funny. My husband did too. Obviously, we are alive and fine. We called the company, started the process to have it changed. My son thought it was funny, my daughter didn't. She said we were irresponsible and didn't think of them. What if we had died? What if the nephews didn't give it up? I said they would be taken care of. They asked if we had a will, and I admitted no. But we have so much family that has agreed verbally over the years to take them. It never seemed necessary. Besides, we're alive. Our kids are adults. It's all fixed now, and we plan to draw a will up. No one was hurt. No one except my daughter. She kept harping on it, and frankly, it was annoying. Finally, I told her, yes, it was a bad move on our end, but she needs to let it go. She got even more mad. Am I the ass here? I'll admit I read the comments before going to make a decision about this one because I didn't fully understand it. My brain couldn't comprehend what I was reading. But yeah, Jesus, I'd be right royally pissed if my parents did this to me. Like, here you go, all of our money and all of our inheritance is gonna go to your cousins. Haha, have fun. You don't know if they're gonna give you that money because, you're the direct descendants of your parents. And it's true that money does change people, so I think that it was a very unwise decision not to immediately change it once they did have kids on the way. Think that was very stupid because, life happens sometimes. People die, and they could have been screwed out of, financial stability that was owed to them by their parents. And in this context, they were owed and they were entitled to that money because the parents did swap it over, and they did say that they would swap it over in the event they had kids. See, people aren't always entitled to money. In this case, they are. OP is the a-hole for leaving it so late. You're the a-hole. You dodged a major bullet. But we didn't die isn't a good defense. Oh, you probably wouldn't have been abandoned by your relatives isn't a good defense. It was a major oversight on your part. It was your job as a parent to protect your children in the event of your deaths, and you didn't do it. Your daughter is right to be angry. This is like finding out that you didn't use a car seat when she was a baby, and saying, "We never crashed," would not be a good defense. Absolutely. And unless they bought additional insurance and set up an estate plan when the kids were born, they made more mistakes. There is probably still a lot of planning and work to be done here. My husband and I were pretty poor when we had our first. We literally had zero assets. He was in school, I wasn't able to work at the time for health reasons, and she was a surprise. We still had a will done up before my daughter was a month old because we wanted to make sure we knew what would happen to her if we died. That is not something you just leave up to chance. You're the a-hole. So you went her entire life without a plan on paper that a court of law could enforce should something go terribly wrong? That was incredibly irresponsible. Money changes people. What if you did die and your nephews had gotten everything and refused your own children? The only documentation you have goes to them. You can't change the past, and harping on it won't change it either. But your defense of "we didn't die" isn't exactly a good one. Learning that had something happened to her parents, she probably wouldn't be abandoned by the family isn't a comforting thought. Yep. I had a relative who died, and none of my aunts began insisting that he promised her certain items while he was alive. Luckily, he did tell multiple people on numerous occasions where he wanted one particular thing to go, which is how I ended up with his prized possession. Nobody could claim he promised it to them because everyone knew he hadn't. Some people suck, and trying times doesn't bring out the best in them. Am I the a-hole for my public freakout? I'm sick of people assuming I don't speak Polish because I'm Asian. Apologies for my crap English. My dad is Mongolian, my mum is Polish. I never met my father as he died before I was born. I look entirely Mongolian, though I'm basically Polish as I grew up in Poland my entire life and I know nothing about Mongolia. My whole life, people assumed I don't know Polish and would speak to me in English, and it's fudging annoying as hell. Half the time, I couldn't even understand the English. I was at a restaurant yesterday, and my waiter comes up to me and asks me in English, "Hello, sir, can I take your order?" And I respond in Polish, "Yes, I'd like this and this and this." And he asks me again in crappy English, "Would you like diet or regular Coke, and fries or sroka?" And again I said, "Listen dude, I speak Polish." And he kept speaking English, to which I said in Polish, "A-hole, I've lived here my whole life. I speak Polish better than I speak English. Polish is my native language, and stop assuming otherwise and take my fudging order in Polish because we live in Poland." He looked shocked, went quiet, and then took my order. My girlfriend was fudging ticked and said I should have just done it in English, but screw this crap, I've had enough of this my whole life, and especially since I told him to speak to me in Polish and he kept going in English. Edit, stop assuming and asking if he didn't speak Polish. He was Polish, and I heard him speak perfect Polish before and after. Also, you can't get a job working in customer service here unless you speak Polish. I think that's kind of obvious. Yes, sometimes we have Ukrainians who don't speak Polish very well, but it's good enough to get the job done. I don't think you're an a-hole for standing your ground on this one. If it's a requirement that you have to be able to speak Polish, and he goes against your wishes when you ask twice for him to speak Polish, I think you're justified in getting angry with him because he continues to speak in English when you don't understand. That's perfectly reasonable, and I don't think you're the a-hole in this situation. I just think it's rude to flip out at service people, but I understand why you did. Not the a-hole, but I have to ask, how did your meal taste with all that spit in it? So, I know that you're joking, I think, but it is so frustrating how people make the assumption that servers mess with food. I have worked in the restaurant industry for over 10 years, from casual to fine dining. In that time, I only met one server who would spit in food. It just sucks, because people will come in and be afraid to send their meal back when something was wrong with it because they're afraid to offend their server. We just want you to be happy. Even if you are a jerk to us, the majority of us have more integrity than to stoop to that level. So gross. What about the cooks? Those people are animals. Most of them are great if you make the effort to build a good friendship with them. I will always blame a remake on myself and not the guest. They tend to be more forgiving that way. The comments proposing that the waiter didn't speak Polish are bizarre. There's no way the waiter wasn't a native Polish speaker. At the barest minimum, it would have come out that he was a non-native when he took the order in Polish. Yeah, I don't understand those comments either. They're pretty stupid. You're right, there's a lot of Ukrainians who are waiters and other low-skilled labor, but they often have thick accents. But they easily pick up Polish as the languages are so similar. I've seen some Africans and Middle Easterners doing jobs for Uber Eats and such too, and they spoke at least some Polish, if not fluently. I've heard about Ukrainians and Belarusians. My girlfriend is from Belarus, and she's able to read Polish, though not speak it, since they're so similar. She should be able to understand it too. All Slavs can to an extent understand all Slavic languages. For Poles, the easiest are Czech, Slovak, Kashubian, and Silesian. For Belarusians, the easiest should be Ukrainian and Russian, I believe. Posted by user Utilitarian Spoon, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not letting my son buy a computer with the money he saved up on?" Hi, I'm new to Reddit and only saw it on a YouTube video, so I thought I would give it a try. My son, 15 last year, asked about getting a gaming computer. My son has the tendency to really want something for about a week, but then drop it after I say he can't have it. He asked about building a computer, and we talked about it. We agreed on a budget of around $1,000, and I told him if he could save up, he could get it. Fast forward a year later, and he did save up $1,000. The only reason I'd even talked about budget was to humor him for a while. He came into me in my husband's room and basically did a presentation on what he was going to buy. I asked him what the cost would be, and he said $1,100. He does have around $1,300 in his account. I shut it down immediately. He's 15 and needs to save for a car. Me and my husband both think that $1,100 is outrageous. He has an Xbox if he wants to play games, and he also has a Chromebook for his schoolwork. He tells me it's not that simple, but $1,100 is crazy. I told him that he could spend $500, and now he won't leave his room because I lied to him and got his hopes up. I just know that $1,100 is way too much. He can get a nice computer for $500. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Yes, you're the a-hole for being ignorant on how much a gaming computer costs these days, and that everyone pays it, and it's an acceptable amount to spend $1,100 on something, if not way more. The fact that you promised him he could buy it if he got $1,000 for it, but not go 10% over, makes you a dick. And you are an a-hole for all of these reasons. OP, accept the judgment. You're the a-hole. Son, if you work hard and save your money, you're allowed to buy a nice $1,000 computer. Just kidding, you're not allowed to at all, ha! Of course you're the a-hole, and he's right, you did lie and get his hopes up. Jumping on this one to add that I have now read through all the replies, And not one person has said anything but you're the a-hole. If you're going to post here, then take the judgment. You have a chance to do right by your son by apologizing to him, admitting that you were absolutely wrong, and acknowledging you did lie to him. Maintain your present course, and he'll feel betrayed forever. OP definitely owes that kid an apology. She should be proud that her son spent a year working towards his goal. That's a big achievement for a 15-year-old. He should be rewarded for his hard work, not treated like this. Also, it shows that if he really wants something, he's willing to work for it. So if he wants a car at some point, he'll save up for that as well. I'm just confused as to why his parents think he needs to be saving up for a car right now. Having your own car as a teenager is one of those luxury things barely anyone does. They don't want him to save for a car. They want another impossible goal for him to never reach. If he saved enough for a cheap used car, they'd have him save for a more expensive one. If he saved for a good used car, they'd want him to save for a new one. The point is that he's too immature to save for stuff, and they know better. You're the a-hole. Reneging on a promise to a teenager after he fulfills his end of the bargain is a betrayal, one that he won't soon forget. He's quite right. You did lie to him and got his hopes up. You're within your rights to question whether he should spend the $1,100 on a computer or save for a car and discuss it with him, but in the end, it's his money. He did everything you told him to do. You're teaching him not to trust you, and I promise you, he won't if you don't reconsider. My parents did this with a dog when I was a kid. If you save X amount of money, do all your chores, prove your responsibility, take care of the existing pets, etc., you can have a dog. Well, guess which fudging sucker did it all and then some? This guy. Guess who wasn't allowed to get a dog? This guy. Clearly, I'm still salty about it 20 plus years later. Posted by user CarrotCake500. Titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to make my brother-in-law a birthday cake? So I, 28 female, enjoy baking immensely. I have accepted the role of baking a cake for any family member's birthday and typically do a different flavor for each person. I also bake a smaller vanilla cake for anyone who doesn't like the chosen flavor. My new brother-in-law, 47 male, has been to 5 family parties and had 5 different flavored cakes. Each time, he pulls them apart by hand, picks out seemingly random pieces, and eats about half. Yeah, I don't understand either. When people start with the good cake comments, he never says anything and even made a disgusted face after eating one of them. I was admittedly heated after that, but my wife, also 28 female, told me to make it more clear that there was an alternative cake and to focus on the people who did enjoy it. Brother-in-law's birthday is coming up at the end of August, and yesterday I had the following text exchange with my sister, 35 female. Sister says, brother-in-law told me to tell you to make him a carrot cake. Birthday's coming up if you forgot. I didn't forget at all. It's a little far out for me to be planning, unless we're celebrating earlier? Nothing early, carrot cake though. We had that at Dad's party, and brother-in-law didn't seem to like it. You sure that's what he wants? Wouldn't have asked if he didn't want it. I think he hates it less than your others. I say thanks. I know he likes strawberries. Maybe I could do a strawberry and cream cake for him. He doesn't have to choose from the ones he's had. Just make the carrot cake. Wife probably won't be invited to the party. I think she's too dykey for him. Note, my wife proudly uses the word dyke, but in a much more positive light. I say I'm only going to go if she does. Fine, I'll pick up the cake that morning then. No cake if it's not a family party. Ugh, don't be a tramp. I stopped responding after that, but I have received several more texts calling me all manner of names, saying I'm breaking up her family, etc. I've also received a few calls from other family members saying I was being unfair by making something I do for the whole family contingent on her doing things my way. I called a few of my friends to ask if I was being unreasonable, and they seemed split between baking the cake for peace or saying that I did the right thing. I normally turn to my wife when I have issues like this, but I don't want to alert her to this if I don't have to, hence the burner account. I feel like I'm in the right by refusing, but I'm not confident. Am I the a-hole? I don't think if you're not feeling like you're invited to this party and your wife isn't invited, that you're the a-hole for refusing to make a cake for them. You know, I would only really make a cake for my family if I was invited to go to the event with them. I get the feeling you're very much left out and your feelings aren't being heard by these guys. They're more just trying to strong-arm you into getting something they want. They aren't looking for a solution that benefits you as well. Therefore, they're just a bunch of a-holes. Like, that's disgusting behavior by them. You're not the a-hole for this. Not the a-hole. I think he hates it less than your others. No, screw all of that. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that was a joke, but with the rest of it... You're missing a trick here, OP. Bake him a cake with a rainbow flag in the center. Don't like dykes? Happy LGBT birthday, motherfricker. Bonus points. Outs himself as the bigot he is when he recoils in horror, having gotten some of your gay in his mouth. Yeah, this is definitely a homophobia issue. Gotta be wary of the gay baking agenda after all. Sarcasm. Not the a-hole. Too dykey? Yikes. Your brother-in-law is an awful person and does not deserve your effort. Your sis is awful for being entitled enabler. Not the a-hole. Keeping peace with ungrateful homophobes is unreasonable and obviously entirely one-sided. I would rock the boat until this tool of a brother-in-law fell off. Honestly, I'm not sure it's entirely my brother-in-law's choice to not invite my wife. My sister was very vocal about her desire to remove me from the family when I came out, but most everyone else was supportive. I feel like he might be giving her the confidence to try and exclude us, but I don't know if that really makes sense. But I think she was a decision maker too. No cakes for your sister either, methinks. Sorry your sister is so callous and does not accept you. I saw an approach in this sub I really liked. Neutral, but cutting honesty. Someone griefs you for not baking, just say, it feels wrong for me to bake for a homophobe that hates me for my sexuality and purposefully excludes my spouse. Posted by user unknownsorry88. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my friend he's childish for ordering kids' books? A few weeks ago, my friend ordered the entire series of Magic Treehouse, which he spent $111 on. To preface, he read these books growing up. He owned a few books here and there, but his family could never really afford them. Now that he's 18 and has his own job, he's begun to buy stuff he never could afford. Nice clothes, new phone, etc. I walked into his room the other day to grab something for him, and noticed that his shelf now had the whole series of MTH, Magic Treehouse, which wasn't there before. I asked him how he got them and why he had them, and he told me he bought the whole series off of eBay just because he wanted to read them in order and own the series. He loves collecting books. He said they brought about a lot of nostalgia as him and his sister, who don't live with them now, read them growing up. I then told him it was childish and honestly a little weird that an 18-year-old man would spend over $100 on children's books to read just because they brought about nostalgia. He got embarrassed and then shrugged it off soon after. He hasn't asked me back over, and he hasn't texted me for a few days now after this comment. So, am I the a-hole for telling him spending over $100 on children's books was childish and immature, especially for an 18-year-old man? Bet you're gonna tell me that my collection of Swedish dildos is childish and immature too, and I spent much more than $100 on those, OP. But for real, does she not realize that she's really hurt his feelings by saying this? That's a massive a-hole thing to do. He gave you a genuinely good reason that he bought the books and why he wants to read them. Just because you think they're kids' books doesn't mean he can't have them. It doesn't make him childish. It makes that something that he wants and it holds dear meaning to him. So yes, what you did makes you the a-hole for this OP, and I don't blame him for cutting you off. You know, he doesn't need that negativity in his life unless, you apologize and make up for it, but it doesn't seem like you will, so you're still the a-hole. You're the a-hole 100% for two reasons. 1. As a person who has been an avid reader since childhood, I can tell you now that the books I read growing up had a huge impact on me, and to this day I think of them fondly. There are precious memories attached to old books you read as a child, and it absolutely makes sense that he would want to reread them. Do you have any idea of how many people in their 30s still reread Harry Potter? It is exactly the same thing. 2. It is his money. As long as he isn't doing anything harmful with it, how he spends it is none of your business. Same goes for his free time. It's even worse that you chose to judge him knowing he couldn't afford these books as a child. Absolutely. Clearly you're the a-hole for exactly those reasons. If you want to repair your friendship and be a better human being going forward in life, apologize to your friend and stop being so judgmental of other people. You're the a-hole for what they said, and also because what you did probably had a deeply hurtful effect on your friend who may be embarrassed in the future about cherishing things he loved and his restorative, repairing childhood losses, behavior. You owe him a deep, heartfelt apology. You're the a-hole. Unless this $111 is coming out of your wallet, I don't even see why you care. 18 is not even as old as you think it is, and barely on the cusp of adulthood/childhood. Just let people enjoy things. Also, that's really cheap if you got the whole set, which is about 25 books, and if it includes the Merlin missions, 50 books. Adults would benefit from reading quite a few old and new children's books that are out there, not the a-hole. Posted by user Reflorited, titled, "Am I the a-hole for breaking the car suddenly to teach my sister-in-law a lesson?" That's my interpretation of the car crash. I, 23 female, was driving with my boyfriend 24 and his sister 21 when this incident happened. To clarify, I have taught my mother and brother and all my cousins how to drive, and I'm a really good driver. My boyfriend asked me to pick him and his sister up from their home and drop them somewhere else. Their dad had taken the car somewhere and they needed a ride. Places are opening up, so I was in the clear. I have no bad relations with his sister. Things are quite okay between us, but I suspect this will be an issue. Anyway, the moment she got in the car, she suddenly started getting extremely nitpicky. I live in India, and honestly, the streets are filled with idiots, so you have to be doubly careful while driving. And this girl was not helping. She kept trying to backseat drive and was giving very incorrect advice. Stuff like, speed up, they'll move out of the way. No, they won't, and I'll have to pay a fine for speeding and putting people's lives in danger. It's really hard to drive in a semi-crowded street, with someone literally trying to backseat drive. At one point, this huge bus came up behind, and she literally let out a scream and started hyperventilating. The bus wasn't doing anything. It was maintaining appropriate distance. There was no reason to cause such a massive panic. My boyfriend tried to get her to calm down, but it wasn't working at all. She just kept screaming. It was incredibly tense. I started feeling panicky, and at the nearest cut in the road, exit, as Americans call it, I turned and parked the car smoothly. The road ahead was nearly empty. Sister-in-law calmed down immediately, and my boyfriend started yelling at her for inappropriately behaving in the car and potentially causing serious accidents with her own stupid behavior. To be clear, sister-in-law has no existing issues with being in the car that my boyfriend knows. Boyfriend and she can both drive, so she knows to not do this crap. Anyway, she started sulking, and I guess I kind of lost it because she wasn't apologizing. So I started the car, but let go of the clutch too quickly, causing the car to lurch forward without actually moving. Boyfriend and I were wearing seatbelts, so nothing happened, but she lurched forward and hit her head on the back of my seat. The seats are padded. She immediately started yelling again, and I said, "This is for being a ... If you don't shut up immediately, I'll kick you out of my car. Behave yourself." I was mad then, but felt like an a-hole later. Boyfriend fully supports me, but I leave it to your judgment. Edit, the vote seems to be fairly split, with half of the people calling me not the a-hole, and the other half calling me an ass. In any case, I didn't feel good about what I did and sent her an apology. She accepted my apology and said she was sorry for causing such a panic. She claimed she was on substances. In any case, thank you for your input, folks. Good night. Alright, I didn't expect her to be on something when she was doing that, but it definitely makes sense. I thought that was just her anxiety, but it definitely could have been, cocaine or some weed or something with that anxiety coming in. You're like, oh crap, we're gonna die. We're all gonna die. The bus is gonna crash into us. Oh my god. I'm definitely on the side of the one driving. I think she's not the a-hole. I think she was just trying to do a good thing for these two, get them around town, get them to where they need to be going for free, and she's being backseat driven by an absolute lunatic. I don't blame her for the actions she took. I would do the same. I would just put on the brakes, be like, get your bloody seatbelt on, you frickin', get it back on. You're gonna break your neck if you don't. So OP, in my view, not the a-hole. I don't blame you, but it was good that you apologized. Not the a-hole. Her hysteria was faked. If she was genuinely worried for her safety, she'd have had a seatbelt on. She can actually kill you sitting behind you with no belt. Don't drive her again. I'm not going to. I told my boyfriend if he ever asks me to drive her again, I will seriously dump him. My dad is in his 70s. He has the policy of never starting the car until everyone has a seatbelt on. He has kicked people out of the car. One, my mum's elder brother, and a relative that was a priest. Safety first, not the a-hole. The best approach. People die without a seatbelt on. Your dad is brilliant. Don't put up with that crap. Ugh. I worked with this idiot back in the day who swore it was safer to not wear a seatbelt because his dad got in an accident one time, and when his car flipped, he just slid out and was totally unhurt. Stupidest crap I've ever heard. As opposed to what? Being shot through the windshield and thrown across the road? Jeez, what an absolute idiot. Seatbelts save lives. So many people die just because they're thrown from cars. They don't slide out. What the hell? Not the a-hole. Not wearing her seatbelt was a conscious choice she made because she seems quite honestly bratty and entitled. This is something I didn't include. We kept telling her to wear the seatbelt, but she wasn't. I was so mad. Like, I'm doing you a favor and you're acting so stupidly and putting people in danger. Not the a-hole. That's actually how we got our eldest son to wear his seatbelt. He was still a toddler and had just figured out how to unclasp the safety belt for his car seat. My husband would strap him in, start driving, son would release his seatbelt. Husband would stop the car, refasten son's safety belt, start driving again, and it would start from the beginning until at a point, my husband just slowed the car down, there were no other cars around at the moment, and hit the brakes hard. Little guy slipped out of his seat and into the back of the driver's seat. He only got a scare out of it, but never undid his seatbelt in a driving car again. Alright, and I think that's where we're going to leave today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed the content today. If you guys loved watching it as much as I loved making it, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel already if you haven't. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below, maybe like the video, who knows. I'd also like to take this time to thank my awesome Patreon and channel members. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably be homeless on the streets of Ireland, crying, Irish dancing all over town. It would just be a mess. But no, for real, you guys are up on the screen now. Thank each and every one of you guys. And if you personally want to join the club yourself, there are links down in the description below. There's also the join button next to the subscribe button. Small monthly fee, but hey, it goes a long way to help me create more awesome content. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you do have a lovely day, night, sleep, evening, day at work, day at school, whatever you're up to. I hope you keep awesome today. You're looking amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.